Thank you very much. A very good morning to each and every one of you. Your Excellencies, before we begin, allow me to call upon Reverend Dr. Zach Kawalala to offer a prayer. Reverend.
Shall we bow as we pray? Abba, Father, we want to thank you for this day, and thank you that you've allowed us to gather in this manner. As we start at the beginning of this conference, themed Resetting the Moral Tone, we call on you, Abba, Father, for your intervention against that which has caused us to meet in this place, the vice of corruption. I come before you, O God, to petition the court of heaven for immediate intervention on behalf of your people in Malawi. Father, we humbly yet boldly come to you now in this time of need. Please, O God, do not resist our petition. We know as a nation of a people that we have failed you. We have failed to honor you. We have rebelled against you. As a people, we are guilty of being involved in a vice that has impoverished our nation. Our moral tone is evil. May you reset it on our behalf. We have rejected your law in so many ways, yet I plead for mercy. We truly do not deserve it, but I know how merciful and gracious you are. You have said in your word that you do not wish that any would perish. We pray, forgive us and help us as a nation. I declare, according to Job 5, verse 12 to 13, that you frustrate the devices of the crafty so that their hands cannot carry out their plans. You catch the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the cunning comes quickly upon them. Father, in our beautiful land of Malawi that you have given us, we pray that, Lord, you take away corruption. Corruption from people of faith. Corruption from our public servants, corruption from lawmakers, from judges, from business people. We ask, oh God, you take away corruption from those who conspire against the impoverished in our land. We pray, oh God, be merciful to us. Bring their evil, the evil of the corrupt, to nothing. Those that have conspired to do injustice and to oppress, bring their plans to nothing. I ask you, oh God, to consider their actions against your people and deal with them as you see fit. Let ungodly stewards be disposed of from their office, and let another more righteous, oh God, be able to take their places. Let their authority be stripped from them, according to Isaiah 22, verse 20 to 22. Let those businesses who make their gain through immoral means and get rich at the expense of the well-being of others, may they wither and dry up immediately. As you cursed the fig tree and it supernaturally dried up overnight, let the same be done to the corrupt public servant, to the corrupt businessman, to the corrupt politician, to the corrupt clergy who conspire to profit by violence against the innocent people of our land. Father, these people have rejoiced at destroying your heritage. They have silenced your people that have understood the amount of corruption and took a stand against it. They have silenced whistleblowers and destroyed their businesses. They have willfully destroyed others and rejoiced in it. They conspire to rob your people of health and life. Let the weapons of your armory be opened. Bring out the weapons of your indignation, according to Jeremiah 50, verse 25. Let your arrows be released to carry out the judgment against those bearing the oppressive sword. Those oppressing your people have refused to let them go. I ask this morning for your judgment with mercy against those that refuse to let your people be free. Father, expose their wrongdoing, the corruption and the harm that public servants at Capitol Hill have perpetuated against the citizens of this land. Give us judges that aren't bought off with a bribe. Your promise in Isaiah 1:26 is that you would give us good judges and wise counselors again. Please give us our liberty back. Show your power, O Lord. Demonstrate the justice of your kingdom. You are the Lord of hosts. Let you, our Redeemer, come to our help and plead for our case. Give us rest from evil taskmasters, against evil princes that have oppressed your people. I declare a sword of justice is against the mighty that seek to perpetuate evil plans and conspire against our nation. According to Psalm 37:17, let the power of the wicked be broken. Father, it is written in Isaiah 49:25, where you affirm that captives would be taken from warriors and plunder retrieved from the fierce. You say that you would contend with those that contend with us. May you contend with those that are contending against our nation through corruption. I thank you that you're a God of justice. I thank you that when we pray, you hear us. I thank you that the evil shield of all those that have plundered our nation shall be destroyed. Today, Father God, at the beginning of the Nation Anti-Corruption Conference, I pray that you start with us. Help us to build a corrupt-free Malawi. Help our leader who has brought us together, who even sought financing for this conference outside the budget, that, Lord, we could gather in this manner. Help him as he stands up against all vices that are working against him, even when he is made to think he should fight others that are fighting corruption. May you help him to be steadfast. May you help him to be upright. Help him to build a corrupt-free Malawi. Help us to rise in holy anger against all corrupt vices. Help us to reset the nation's moral tone. Oh, Father, we pray. Bless this conference. Let your kingdom come, Lord Jesus. Let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Reverend, for that powerful prayer. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera. Your Excellency, the First Lady of the Republic of Malawi, Madam Monica Chakwera. Your Honor, Catherine Gotani Hara, MP, Speaker of Parliament of Malawi. Honorable Titus Mvalo, Minister of Justice, and all the Cabinet and Deputy Cabinet Ministers here present. My Lord Lovemore Chikoba SC, Judge of the Supreme Court, and all the honorable judges here present. Ms. Colleen Zamba, Secretary to the President and Cabinet, and all the government officials here present. Ms. Martha Chizuma, Director General, and all the members of staff of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. All the leaders, representatives, and members of the Tonse Alliance here present. Honorable Kondwani Nankumwa, MP, Leader of the Opposition in Parliament of Malawi. Your Excellencies, Heads of Mission and International Organizations here present. Professor Patrick Otieno Lumumba and Mr. Herman Lauser, our distinguished presenters. Mr. Timothy Milton Handstand and Ms. Anna Lee Bess Erickson from the Chandler Foundation. All the members of Parliament here present. Your Worship, Councillor Woud Ndipo, Mayor of the City of Blantyre, and all the councillors here present. All the paramount chiefs and all the traditional leaders here present. Reverend Dr. Zach Kawalala, the officiating clergy, and all the religious leaders here present. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tabby Kamwangala, and I will be your Director of Ceremonies for this National Anti-Corruption Conference, which of course is a 2-day conference starting today and of course ending tomorrow. Your Excellency, before we get into the business of the day, allow me to give a brief background and to explain as to why we're here this morning. Malawi envisions to be an inclusively wealthy and self-reliant industrialized upper middle income country by the year 2063. However, one of the threats to the realization of this vision happens to be corruption, which is widespread and is derailing course and pace of development in our beautiful, warm heart. But here's the good news. The Malawi government has placed the fight against corruption as one of its priorities for it to attain socio-economic development. This anti-corruption fight is guided by the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, which is Malawi's blueprint for a corruption-free society, which propagates a holistic approach in the fight against corruption. So the question you may be asking is, what do we aim to accomplish and achieve with this conference? I'll give you a few points. Among others, this conference is aimed to achieve the following: identifying the loopholes and gaps that still exist in government and are used for corruption. Serve as a platform for having an honest national dialogue about ways how, as a society, we can create an enabling environment, for corruption and devise ways of changing it altogether. Thirdly, is to carry out an audit on what has been done and what needs to be done to win the anti-corruption fight. Fourth, but definitely not least, is to inspire people to take part in the anti-corruption campaign, reminding all of us that the fight against corruption is not a one-man show. It's a task that each and every one of us should play a part and therefore be a part of. And so, Your Excellency, I would therefore like to say good morning once again to each and every one of you and to welcome you to the National Anti-Corruption Conference. Mwina ndingonena sozo mwenzo muchijewa kunena kuti takulandilani nonse mauno. Your Excellency, there'll be different activities during this two-day course, and I would just like to highlight two. One of them is a panel discussion that will take place this morning. Of course, the panelists include Ms. Colleen Zamba, Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Honorable Justice of Appeal Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga from the Malawi Judiciary, Mr. Jimmy Lipunga, former CEO, Public-Private Partnership Commission, PPPC, and Professor Happy Gayuni, Dean of Faculty, Social Science Department at the University of Malawi, UNIMA. There will also be motivational speeches and speakers for breakaway groups. These motivational speakers include Dr. Thomas Muntali, Dr. Yamikani Ndasauka, Dr. Ngei Kanyongolo, Dr. Chifundo Kajali, Bishop Kalemba, Archbishop Mark Kampalazaza, Professor Adres Malata, Justice Dorothy Kamanga, Mordecai Nsisya, Dr. Napoleon Dzombe, Zach Kawalara, Elia Bodole, and Reverend Nancy Chunga. Also, to let you know, Your Excellency, all protocols observed, that this year's theme is resetting the nation's moral tone. Munchijewa tikunena kuti kubwerezetsa ungwiro mchimake. As such, Your Excellency, allow me to invite the first presenter of this morning, Mr. Ezilon Kasoka, who is the Senior Corruption Prevention Officer at the Anti-Corruption Bureau. Mr. Kasoka, Your Excellency, will be making a presentation on the progress of National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2 implementation. Mr. Kasoka.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus Makikathe Chakwera, Her Excellency, Madam Monica Chakwera, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi, and all protocols observed. My humble duty this morning is to give an update on the progress made in the implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, and I'll focus on the implementation challenges as well as the successes that have been registered this far. To begin with, ladies and gentlemen, is to bring to your attention, we are here to discuss about corruption. It is worthwhile, therefore, to give the meaning of what term corruption is. And I will use the definition provided by Transparency International, which defines corruption as abuse of entrusted power for personal gain. It is a must that we hold different positions in the society, and if we use these positions for our own benefit, it means we are acting in a corrupt way. In Malawi, the Corrupt Practices Act looked at corruption in three ways. First is bribery, where we are talking about the giving, the receiving, the demanding, and soliciting of benefits to influence a decision. The Corrupt Practices Act also talks about extortion, which is the demanding of a fee for services that are offered for free or charging more than what is recommended. And finally, the Corrupt Practices Act looks at influence peddling, whereby people in authority use their powers for their benefit. Ladies and gentlemen, Malawi is ranked 110 out of 180 countries with regards to perception of corruption, which is offered by Transparency International. This is an improvement. Previous 2 years, Malawi was ranked with a score of 31. However, ladies and gentlemen, the score of 35 means we are not doing well in the fight against corruption. Therefore, it is my humble duty to call upon us all here to stand strong and fight corruption in all its forms. Coming to the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, ladies and gentlemen, the National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2 was launched in 2019 during the commemoration of International Anti-Corruption Day in Mangochi, and it is a springboard from the first strategy, which expired in 2014. During the development of the strategy, we are here to suggest that we take all necessary measures so that the aspirations as set in the Agenda 2063, that Malawi becomes a middle-income country, can be achieved if we fight corruption. How do we get to the middle-income country? We are supposed to deal with root causes of corruption. And amidst us, we have greed as one of the root causes of corruption, but also lack of integrity among Malawians. And if we are to do that, we aim to improve delivery of services as well as strengthening the rule of law so that no one is above the law. In the end, we would like to have a Malawi where citizens are empowered to take action against any forms of corruption. In this regard, we have strategic pillars which spearhead the fight against corruption in these various sectors. As compared to the 2008 strategy, NACS 2 has got 12 pillars which include the judiciary, the academia, as well as the youth to support the fight against corruption. In all this, what is critical, ladies and gentlemen, is for the public to be involved at all levels in the fight against corruption. It could take the form of reporting corruption, acting as witnesses, as well as resisting and rejecting corruption. To this far, there are a number of strides that have been made in the implementation of the strategy. The first is the commissioning of the National Integrity Committee, which is a policy body looking at the implementation of the NACS. And I'm proud to inform you all that the committee is working tirelessly to ensure that the strategy is implemented as anticipated. There has also been establishment and operationalization of integrity committees in various public institutions across Malawi. A total of 115 integrity committees have this far been established to mainstream the fight against corruption. It is not only the task of the SCB or other governance institutions, but we need at all levels that institutions should be involved. One other key achievement is the establishment of the National Youth Anti-Corruption Network in Malawi. The grouping has been involved in a number of initiatives, and Your Excellency, I'm proud to say that today they will be performing to show how the young people can transform our country into a corrupt-free Malawi. And their song is related to our today's theme of morals, as they'll be singing about Umuntu. However, there are areas that we feel we can do better as a country in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. Primarily, ladies and gentlemen, is the improvement in quality service delivered by public institutions. We hear, for instance, at the National Registration Bureau, there are delays in processing of IDs. We hear of suspected cases of corruption with police officers. We hear delays at the Road Traffic Directorate. We hear missing of taxes at MRA and many other public institutions. We can do better. Secondly, we are looking at the reduction of corruption in procurement. It is noted that there are efforts, including the launching of the e-procurement. There is vetting that takes place. However, we are still also associated with a number of issues to do with the public procurement. And therefore, we call upon Malawians and the public institutions to ensure that the procurement of goods and services are done with adherence to the set rules and procedures. Finally, the area which we also need to improve, ladies and gentlemen, is on political party funding. We have a legislation, but its implementation is slowly in Malawi. In terms of challenges, ladies and gentlemen, we have spectators in the fight against corruption. And gathering here, we are of the view that all stakeholders should be involved in the fight against corruption and not letting it on the SCB and few other governance institutions. We have also noted with concern that the pillars are very slow in implementing activities that are contained in the implementation plan of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, I'm proud to say that being a mid-year, we have surpassed the 50% progress in terms of implementation of the activities that are contained in the National Anti-Corruption Strategy 2, and we are calling upon you all to take part in the fight against corruption. It begins with us all. Thank you so much for your attention.
Another round of applause for Mr. Gasogo for that powerful presentation. Just to echo what he pointed out, he made mention that greed and lack of integrity are some of the top causes of corruption in the country. But the good news is that 115 integrity commissions have been formulated, and of course the National Youth Anti-Corruption Network, he did mention that young people are essential towards the fight against corruption. Thank you very much for that presentation. Your Excellency, allow me now to call upon Ms. Linus Chigankeni, Principal Legislative Counsel in the Ministry of Justice, coming to present on the progress of outcomes of National Anti-Corruption Dialogue Report. Ms. Chigankeni.
Your Excellency, Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi, and Madam Monica Chakwera, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi. All protocols observed. My presentation is on the progress on implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Dialogue that was held in 2021, and it will be composed of two parts. Firstly, a brief on what the dialogue was, what it mandated, and an update on where we are currently. Your Excellency, in November 2021, the Ministry of Justice and the Anti-Corruption Bureau organized the dialogue, inviting multiple stakeholders, including the National Integrity Committee, to have a discourse aimed at strengthening the synergies in the fight against corruption, creating a platform for national reflection on corruption through dialogue, identifying serious gaps in the NACS 2 that had developed as a result of changes in trends since 2019 when the NACS 2 was published, discussing some short and long-term measures for the implementation of the NACS 2, and validating the United Nations Scoping Mission results on corruption in Malawi. The approach taken was to identify 7 thematic areas that were deemed to have significant impact on anti-corruption efforts in Malawi, and these were, firstly, a review of the school curriculum to embed anti-corruption thinking into the curriculum. Secondly, a review of the methodologies and modalities that are used in asset recovery and depriving offenders of proceeds of crime. Thirdly, an enhancement of the utilization of e-governance and digitalization to combat corruption in Malawi. Fourthly, consideration of the establishment of a financial crimes court to expedite the hearing of financial crimes matters in Malawi. Fifthly, a discussion on whether it was necessary to enact whistleblower protection legislation to encourage whistleblowers to come forward with information about corruption. Sixthly, a consideration of how lifestyle audits ought to be effected in implementing Section 32 of the Corrupt Practices Act. And seventh, exploring the ways in which we could generally strengthen anti-money laundering measures in Malawi. At the conclusion of the dialogue, there was a report presented which included a matrix of short and long-term objectives that were to be achieved. The report was presented to the Vice President in December at the International Anti-Corruption Day, and thereafter, the stakeholders in the anti-corruption fight have been implementing the outcomes that we were indicated to implement. Your Excellency, with respect to thematic area number 1, to date, the lead institution identified was the Anti-Corruption Bureau, working in close coordination with the Ministry of Education and the Malawi Institute of Education. And they have carried out a desk analysis of the primary school national curriculum. As of the end of February 2022, the Malawi Institute of Education and the Ministry of Education have finalized the curriculum audit, and they are currently implementing ways of integrating anti-corruption messaging into the national primary school curriculum by developing a source book. Further, with respect to thematic area number 2, the lead institution identified is the Ministry of Justice, who have enhanced the implementation of the National Coordination Strategy on investigation and prosecution of financial and related crime. They have commenced a review of the Financial Crimes Act, which is the primary piece of legislation that is utilized to recover assets and confiscate proceeds of crime in Malawi. There has also been the development and implementation of strategies for cohesive and coordinated approach to development of case law in ongoing litigation on asset recovery that has seen an improvement in the amount of assets recovered in Malawi. Fourthly, the Ministry of Justice and other stakeholders have implemented capacity building programs for investigators and litigators on asset recovery. With respect to the third thematic area, the lead institution identified was the Ministry of Information and Digitalization, and they have commenced a review of the National ICT and Digitalization Policy to integrate anti-corruption measures into the policy. They have also finalized the construction of a primary national data center to ensure collation of all data at a single point. There is also ongoing development of an e-government payment gateway to ensure that the financial systems are not abused to facilitate corruption. And finally, there has been the rollout of an electronic government procurement system by the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Authority. Further, with respect to the fourth thematic area, the lead institution identified was the judiciary. And the judiciary, in collaboration with the Ministry of Justice, has finalized the legislative drafting process for an amendment to the Courts Act, creating a Financial Crimes Court division, and this bill has been tabled before Parliament. The judiciary has also simultaneously focused on building the capacity of its members by providing trainings in, amongst other things, asset recovery. With respect to the fifth thematic area, the lead institution identified was the Anti-Corruption Bureau. And the Anti-Corruption Bureau has to date carried out a desk analysis of the existing whistleblower protections within the laws of Malawi. They have identified that there is a need for a single comprehensive piece of legislation that covers all protections that are necessary, and to this effect, they have obtained funding for the legislative drafting process, and it is anticipated that consultations will commence as early as August 2022. Further, Under thematic area number 6, the lead institution identified was also the Anti-Corruption Bureau, and with respect to this, a task force has been formed composed of members from multiple stakeholder institutions to review and develop a lifestyle audit manual, and this process has commenced. Furthermore, simultaneously, there is ongoing research being undertaken into the enabling legislation under the Corrupt Practices Act to identify the strengths and weaknesses therein to see how this can be shored up. With respect to the final thematic area, the lead institution identified was the Financial Intelligence Authority. And to date, the Ministry of Finance has coordinated the development of a draft national anti-money laundering policy, which is at a very advanced stage. Further, the Financial Intelligence Authority has been coordinating Malawi's compliance at a regional and international level with all applicable anti-money laundering standards. There has also been ongoing capacity building of all stakeholders, including the sectors which may be inadvertently used for money laundering practices. They have been trained so that they are able to identify where money laundering is occurring and also able to know where to report any suspected money laundering. Fourthly, the implementation of the National Coordination Strategy on investigation and prosecution of financial and related crimes has also been enhanced with respect to money laundering. This has resulted in a more cohesive approach to money laundering investigation and prosecution in the country, and we are seeing the results in the cases that are currently being taken to court. Your Excellency, this is what has been achieved to date with the support of the government and some development partners, and we anticipate that we shall only do better going forward. Thank you for your kind attention.
Ms. Linus Chigankeni, they are Principal Legislative Counsel in the Ministry of Justice. Just to echo her presentation, Your Excellency, we are living in a technological era, and therefore we're living in an era where digitization is extremely essential. So just to echo part of her presentation, she did make mention that there is an ongoing review of the national ICT and digitalization policy, which I think is something that's important to note there. In this segment, Your Excellency, I'd like to now invite a plenary and reactions by everyone present here this morning. In this segment, each and every one of us is allowed to take part in asking questions or making commentary. Now, these questions and commentary can be related to the presentations that we've just had from Mr. Enzilon Gasoga and, of course, Ms. Linus Chigankeni. But they will be responded by the Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau, Ms. Martha Chizuma. So we're going to have microphones going around in the audience. If you have a question or a comment, you can simply raise your hand and somebody will come to you directly. Just to make mention that because of time, we'll only take one comment and 2 questions. So we'll take 1 comment and 2 questions. Please feel free to raise your hands if you have any comment or questions, and of course the microphone will find you. I think we've got some hands already here. If somebody could provide a microphone in the middle section. I think we've got one in the middle and we've got another one at the far back. Maybe we start with the one in the middle. Yeah.
Thank you very much. My name is Gabriel Nyondo, representative from UNIMA. I would like to appreciate, first of all the measures that the Bureau has taken to fight against corruption. But now my question is, just as students, I might view corruption to be as a big tree that has matured and lived for so long. Now, as all the measures that are being taken, we are trying to fight corruption. As we fight corruption, it's more or less like cutting a tree so that it ceases to exist. But then, there are more root causes of corruption that at times we try to undermine. My question was, what are we doing for us to fight or to let the causes of corruption cease to exist before we can actually fight corruption? Because at times, we might be cutting a tree while not uprooting the roots. As time goes, that tree will come again and grow and mature as it was. So my worry still remains to say, what are we doing to uproot all roots to make sure that corruption ceases to exist? And to us youth, what are we doing? As the Bureau, what are you doing so that youth should particularly be involved in fighting against corruption? Because as we see the vision of 2063, we'll be the leaders as youth. If we are not told the bad or the evils of corruption today, be assured that we will be there doing corruption. What are we doing then? The Bureau, what are you doing to involve us so that we should know and be of more integrity so that at least as we become leaders of tomorrow, we should be free from corruption? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think we've got another question at the far back there.
Was it here? It's here? For me, not necessarily a question, but just a comment, one or two. My name is Moses Mkandawili. I chair the National Alliance Against Corruption, but I'm also the director of Church and Society Livingstone Synod. Three things. One, coordination. I think we agreed at the last meeting that we need to enhance coordination between and amongst the law enforcement institutions, ACB, DPP, Financial Intelligence Authority. But what we are hearing today is not good. So I just want to encourage colleagues that are working in these institutions, please, to reflect on what we had agreed upon. Number two, procurement system. I'm happy that something has been mentioned with regard to e-governance and so on and so forth. But I think what is perturbing to some of us, and given the SATA saga, is that the internal procurement committees in the various MDAs, over 300 of them, what are they doing? We come to PPDA, we come to ACB, we come to government contracting unit. I don't know why they came in, but you can explain better why they came in. Minister of Justice, because honestly, we can't wait at the time of payments, then when you see that things went wrong. Yet at the time of not signing the contract, all these processes were taking place, and we know for sure that there was some prices that were done wrongly. We're not happy, some of us, to hear that. And what we're going to do with all those individuals who are in these committees and approving all the processes, we need to have a system on that. Finally, it's on the issue of the lifestyle audit and vis-a-vis the amnesty. It's so saddening that somebody in government receives around 200,000 Malai Kwacha, as an example, but the property that he or she has is over 10 billion. What's happening is wrong. And Your Excellency, you might remember that when you were carrying out the campaigns, you did mention about the amnesty that can be granted to some individuals who might have gotten public resources illegally to themselves. But unfortunately, that has not been done. Could this be the time, Your Excellency, that you need to reflect on that for the sake of this nation? Let's still more go to that amnesty. Any person that might have gotten wealth illegally, please come and report to government. And just give us that house that you took, that car that you took. Maybe perhaps we can forgive you. But if the time is given like maybe 2 months or 3 months and you haven't given, then honestly, we need to do something about it. I just want to remind you, Your Excellency, and I really appreciate and thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think we had one more. Yes, Mr. Wakudagamanga, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm Wakudagamanga, Secretary General for Alliance for Democracy. I want to make reference to the prayer that was given by Dr. Zaki Kawarara. For me, he set the tone for this meeting. And I was like, even if we go away now, with that prayer in mind, we have made some steps. My concern, I have listened to what the first presenter did give, and the second one, where you're talking about the thematic areas of how you want to approach the fight against corruption. But the spirit behind all the presentations, the thinking, the theory is very weak. Because it does not tell anybody how we want to deal with these troublesome, corrupt persons in this country. I wish there was a mention of how we want to punish these corrupt captains. If we cannot come out clearly of how we want to punish them, it's like we want to support that these people must continue vandalizing our nation. So I want these people to come out very clearly. Is it in the registration that the judiciary will be doing, that they have hidden the punishments, or where? We want to hear how these people shall be punished. Shall we cut their arms, their necks, or what are we going to do? We need to be serious. I hope the judiciary will be also looking at the speed at which they handle these cases. It's too slow. Sometimes those of us that don't want to steal are beginning to think, maybe we should start stealing. You can survive in this country. Please, we want punitive measures that deal and the speed. I thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks and, of course, your question. I think the young man from UNIMA, is it a representative from UNIMA, asked a question regarding how the youth are being involved in the fight against corruption. Let me just refer to Mr. Ezelon Kasoka's presentation, in which he made mention that there's been a national youth anti-corruption network that was formulated, but I'm sure the Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau will be able to respond a little more on that. Over to you, Madam Martha Chizuma.
Thank you very much, Moderator. Your Excellency, and all protocols observed. The first question, as you have rightly put by Mr. Gabriel Nyondo from UNIMA, was on the how representative are the youth in the fight against corruption. As she has rightly put, under the 12 pillars that are under the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, we have the youth pillar. And if you look at the program, they are going to do a presentation this morning. Suffice to say that the youth pillar itself is supposed to engage further youth in different localities and in different institutions. So they are here, they are in charge of that pillar, they have heard you, I'm sure they will be able to engage you. Now, on the question of the whether we are dealing with the root causes of corruption and whether we are just cutting the tree and not uprooting the roots, you have a very good point there. From our observation and assessment from the Bureau, when you look at how corruption is done, you can have all the laws, you can have all the systems put in place, but at the very root of it is the human factor, muntu. What you choose to do and how you want to do it. That's why if you see right from last year, the theme of our International Anti-Corruption Day was focused on Umuntu. Even today, the theme of the conference is resettling the moral tone of the country. So in all this, we are recognizing the role of personal morality plays in the fight against corruption. And as my colleague from Ministry of Justice was presenting, she mentioned the issue of curriculum review as one of the game changers that the National Anti-Corruption Dialogue identified in as far as corruption is concerned, rather. So the review of the primary school curriculum is just a starting point. There will be a comprehensive review. As you have said, we are already working with Ministry of Education and the Malawi Institute of Education. We are also in the process of identifying a donor to fund the whole process, such that all things being equal, we are hoping that by end of next year, we could be talking of a proper and comprehensive inclusion of issues of ethics and integrity in the primary school curriculum. So that's just a starting point. Funds permitting, we should be able now to proceed to secondary school and even tertiary education. So we are hoping that with that, we'll start creating a new generation that has got Umuntu. I hope I've answered your question. Now, Mr. Moses Nkandaure, yours was more of a comment, but I think you mentioned on the issue of public procurement processes where the process goes through a number of institutions, but at the end of the day, you still are having all these corrupt public procurements coming up. I can only talk about the Bureau as to what we have done, having realized the problem. If you know, the Bureau gets involved at vetting high-value procurements or single-sourcing procurements as per Section 37 of the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act. So those are the submissions that we get from PPDA to the Bureau. In the beginning, what used to happen is that an officer within the Corruption Prevention Division would be the one vetting the procurement. And basically, at that level, what he's looking at is just to check in the system if that potential supplier is being investigated by the Bureau. Now, having realized this, where we found ourselves in a situation where the Bureau has vetted the particular procurement, and then a month later, there's an allegation of corruption on the very same particular procurement. It was becoming very awkward and embarrassing for the Bureau. So what we've done is now we've put a full committee. And in this full committee, you have investigators, you've got lawyers, you have corruption prevention officers taking part in the vetting. And at this level, they are not only looking at whether the particular or potential supplier is being investigated by the Bureau. They are looking at all those aspects to do with the pricing and other things. Issues of beneficial interest are also being considered. And what we've noted is that since we started implementing this system, we haven't had another situation where after the Bureau has vetted a particular procurement, it has come back now as a complaint of corruption. So we believe that it is working for now. Coming now to Honorable Wakuda Kamanga on what it is that we are doing to punish the people involved in corruption. I think that's an issue for this conference, really. But as of now, what we can say for us, under the CPA, I think the highest that one gets for any conviction of corruption would be 12 years. Of course, for money laundering, it would be life imprisonment. But now it's up to this conference to to discuss those things and then let the normal process go through that may result in maybe enhancement of the sentences. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Zimkwambiri Mai Martha Chizuma poyankha mafunso amenewo ngakhaleso ndemanga zimene zinayikidwa ndithu. Pakadali pano, President mundilole kuti ndiyitanitse a Youth Pillar, gulu limeneli ndikhulupirira kuti litipatsa mayimbidwe mmawa uno. A Youth Pillar ndi nthawi yanu.
Malawi ngati dziko tikupititsa patsogolo chitukuko chathu chokhazikika ngati tingalimbikitse umunthu mwa nzika zathu kuno kwathu. Yes, Malawi as a nation, we can achieve this sustainable development.
MC on the beat.
Ngale umuntu ditakupewa zambili katangale zipupunga kale somilili kumanga zikola tu Malawi wachiwili kumucho sapansi mbendela ya tupapili umuntu Malawi watu tikumuzi wahi umuntu atakusinta haba mboga mahi umuntu aliyese hatango tenga mbali usaka chilungamo humba ndani kupa ai
ndiye pelo la Malawi opambana umuntu ndiye pachimake pachitukuko umuntu ndiye chidacho limbana ndikatangale umuntu Malawi wokomela wina aliyese umuntu ndiye pelo la Malawi opambana umuntu ndiye pachimake pachitukuko umuntu ndiye chidacho limbana ndikatangale umuntu Malawi wokomela wina aliyese.
Ziko linali mudima kuna chapano tinasekula maso tinabwezelesa chituko kombuyo ziko linaje ziwanso leno meko sutukulile ziko tosi tinakazikisanso kuti ziteke anthu okonda ziko onse tindawo uzanso kuti pafunika munthu kale ndi umunthu kale nzelu munthu asikonda munthu asidana ndizipupu karangale mbali zonse kuti tipange ziko la Malawi lokomela
onse chuluka ndilo kyangira zabwino zonse mumango katamira simufuna zanzano ziyenda ai anthu akuvutika mukuwaona pomwe chuma mungokhalira ifa mphawi tikufa ni njala ukusowa ndi umunthu
aliyesa ngokhala obalalika kamba kakatangale chuma sichikuyenda bwino ziko likoma bwanji pamene zinthu zizingokwera mwangoti kundikira anthu ni mulibe womuntu
umuntu ndiye pelo la Malawi opambana umuntu ndiye pachimake pachitukuko umuntu ndiye chidacho limbana ndikatangale umuntu Malawi wokomela wina aliyese umuntu ndiye pelo la Malawi opambana umuntu ndiye pachimake pachitukuko umuntu ndiye chidacho limbana ndikatangale umuntu Malawi wokomela wina aliyese
sifunika kalidwe ndi chuma wala kwiso zuzulidwe katangale sinchitidwe tikoza bwanji tuziko umutu mutima tilibe zikufunika kumfana koza ziko lokomela tonse tikanakhala pamozi kamba chimozi chitukuko pasogolo Malawi tikadakozi bwanji chisoni mitima mwanu mukamapondeleza dela lokala lanu katangale mutaleka mabosi
Babila zaka zochuluka Chitengele ni ufuru Koma Malawisa kutukuka Koma Malawisa kutukuka Bila mboma la chuluka Akupondeleza na kwa chuluka Malawi atukuka bwanje
Lelo Malawi akundewa pansi Kani yake mugaone sasa ndizi pupu Tikatangale Malawi ya mbili pano wakuvutika Asogoleli ya mbili mintima mwatu Chikusomu
Malawi sikola tulo Kongola Mavalido makalido o Kongola Tudivuta njano kalandi umuntu Sanje tutudipa tosende famosi Tikale basi tivane chimosi Bakala buta kulyankula na modeka Tikatelo muntu utata utenga Okomelela osewa azadeka
Ukala wopanda umuntu Ukona timaganiza zoipa Kupa alobeno Takalani umuntu Sitinga kwa dibwese wana Hali ya jijepele Tikusowa umuntu
Ziyambire maofesi kutera kumamizi Kotero ziko latuliza kalako pantuzi Mukale ndi umuntu amai ndi abambo Mukale ndi umuntu osamata ya mwambo
Sepa mozi
Topanga chimozi
Malawi mozi
Tukule Malawi
Mesa Malawi Alizikolo koma ankaka uchi Usiku nkumango yenda opanda tochi Lelo nkaniza ke uzingo va afankosi Hey Ati kwa kyangosi Mesa Malawi Ali mwana wa bwino wa Afrika Ofunda ndi wa chikondi wofikika Kodi lelo iwe wanka kuti Umuntu Ndiye mbelo na Malawi wopambana Umuntu Ndiye pachimake pachitukuko Umuntu Ndiye chidacho limbana ndikatangale Umuntu Malawi wokomela wina aliyese Umuntu Ndiye pelo la Malawi wopambana Ndiye pachimake pachitukuko Ndiye chidacho limbana ndikatangale Umuntu Malawi wokomela wina aliyese
Thank you so much.
Maimbidwe kuchokera kwa Youth Pillar. Another round of applause for Youth Pillar. Their singing had me thinking because the Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau was talking about Umuntu when she was responding to questions, and it so happens that Youth Pillar was actually singing about the same. It had me thinking, did you communicate with each other to discuss the lyrics, or what exactly happened? But moving on, Your Excellency, with this morning's program, allow me to now invite Professor Patrick Elo Lumumba, who will be giving us an inspirational talk. Professor.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, the First Lady of the Republic of Malawi, Madam Monica Chakwera, and permit me to stand on the protocols that have already been established so that I do not exclude and therefore annoy some people. let me say how glad I am to be present in this assembly this morning, particularly at a time when Malawi is receiving good press because of the action that has been taken by His Excellency the President regarding the SATA matter. You may not know it, but it is something that is acknowledged across the continent by people of goodwill. Of course, the jury is still out as to what will ultimately happen, but it is a good beginning. As we are assembled here today, there are skeptics out there who are saying and asking, how many meetings, how many workshops will they hold to strategize about corruption? Our message to them is that we shall continue to hold many, because we are children of light and we strategize during the day. The corrupt will meet later this evening to strategize at night, but we will not stop meeting. Corruption is a cancer that has been recognized as such. Internationally, you will remember in the year 2013, the international community met in Merida, Mexico, and we have the UN Convention Against Corruption. So internationally, we know that corruption is a bad thing. It is a cancer that must be fought. Prior to that, the African Union also had a meeting in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and we came up with the African Convention for Preventing and Combating Corruption, so that even in the continent of Africa, we recognize the devastating effect of corruption. The individual countries, including Malawi, also enacted their domestic legislation, and we now have bodies that are dedicated against the evil of corruption, which is headed by my good friend, Madam Martha, and I know that on a daily basis you are accumulating enemies, because the task you are charged with is not an easy task. So today, as we assembled here, and we are telling ourselves that we want to reset the nation's moral tone, we are acknowledging that all of us have sinned and fallen short of the glory of both God and man. And that it is in that recognition that we are assembled here today in order to ask ourselves uncomfortable questions, yet necessary questions, as we proceed to fight against corruption. There are many doubting Thomases who will ask rhetorically, but what will they do? How can they fight us? Because corruption has become a way of life. There are those who even claimed at certain times that corruption is a victimless crime. Individuals of that ilk were those who found themselves, particularly in public institutions, given the honor and privilege of presiding over public funds, which they would then privatize and ask, and whose goat have I eaten? Because they are governed by the assumption that public money belongs to nobody. We are here to tell them that public funds belong to us. They belong to us because when governments are given the honor and privilege of serving and they are expected to work on our roads, it is that money that they use. When we expect them to build schools, it is that money that they use. When we expect them to build hospitals, it is that money that they use. When we expect them, as in Malawi, to give meaning to Agenda 2063 or Vision 2063, it is those funds that they use. So today, those of us who are in the habit of asking, and whose goat have I eaten? You have eaten our goat, and you are continuing to eat our goats, and we will not allow you to do so. Because when you drive on dilapidated road, there is a public official colluding with private individuals who have taken money which ought to have gone to the roads. When you are sick and you go to a hospital and you find that there is a dysfunctional machine or equipment, it is because some individual has done what he or she ought not to have done. So today, we are here both to dramatize our disgust at corruption and also to forge new ways of fighting this scourge. You know, this continent in which we live, this continent in which Malawi is, this continent in which you are, is a rich continent. But this continent continues to punch below her weight. This continent continues to be in the lower rungs of economic development. This continent continues to walk around the world with a bowl in her hand, begging other civilizations. This continent continues to be recognized for her notoriety in seeking help from international institutions whose intentions are not always noble, because we do not use our resources effectively, because we use positions of honor and privilege to satisfy our greed. This continent is punching below her weight because many of our sons have made greed their creed. We are here to liberate ourselves from the chains of corruption. We are here to exorcise the ghost of greed that is resident in our hearts and minds. There are no shortage of laws. I remember as a young student reading about a South American leader who on an occasion such as this lamented and said, "In my country, there is no shortage of laws. If you want to find the laws against corruption, you'll find one. If you want to find laws about all vices, you'll find one. But there is only one law that is absent, the law that says we should obey all the other laws." Sometimes in many countries, including Malawi, the laws are innocent. They are there. The institutions are there. If you talk about the executive arm, it is all there. If you talk about the judiciary, it is there. If you talk about the Anti-Corruption Bureau, it is there. If you talk about traditional rulers, they are there. If you talk about the churches, the clergy, and the mosque, they are there. If you talk about us praying to the heavens to help us, we pray on a daily basis. We pray and fast. Yet somehow we do not do the right thing. Yet somehow we do not do what we ought to do. So on an occasion such as this, we ought to ask ourselves, what is it that we are not doing right? Why is it that when we think we have made the correct diagnosis and we apply what we think is an antidote, new wounds appear? We must ask ourselves, Is it possible that we are treating the symptoms but never the real disease? Somebody posed rhetorically, but I'll respond regardless. What are we doing to these children of darkness who do not care about our nations? How do we deal with them? I know sometimes when we smell blood, we become like Draculas before us. We want blood to flow. We want to consume them. But then we are governed by the rule of law. Because if it were otherwise, these individuals who are accused of corruption would simply assemble them somewhere and send them to their Mecca sooner rather than later. But we know better because we are countries that are governed by law. And the wheels of justice move slowly, and sometimes frustratingly slowly, because when we want to punish somebody whom we have caught in the very act, the law tells us, no, we know you have caught them in the very act, but you must allow justice to take its course. So we go to court, and we prosecute them. And as we prosecute them, even when we caught them in the very act, they have their lawyers, and their lawyers are asking difficult questions. And sometimes the judges will tell you, we know, but we will only convict them on the law as is based on the evidence. And when a thief is acquitted, you wonder why. Those are the trials and tribulations that we must go through, but we must never say die, because it is incumbent upon us to save our countries. You know, sometimes you may think that corruption is something, is a pie in the sky, is something that is an alien thing, but I want to tell you that corruption is a cancer. It is Kofi Annan who said several years ago that the tragedy of corruption is that it spares none. It eats every cell in the political life of a nation, in the economic life of a nation, in the cultural life of a nation, in the spiritual life of a nation, and reduces a nation to a shell of a thing. Let us not allow corruption to do that in Malawi. Let us not allow corruption to do that in Africa. Let us not allow corruption to undermine our noble intentions. And on an occasion such as this, it is a time for reflection. Each one of us must ask, what am I doing in the fight against corruption? The easy option is to say that it is the Anti-Corruption Bureau that has been mandated to deal with corruption, and therefore to be a spectator who has a ringside seat and is watching Anti-Corruption Bureau wrestling with a monster called corruption. That is not a fight against corruption. The fight against corruption is not for the Director of Public Prosecutions only. No, it is not. The fight against corruption is not for the President of the Republic. No, it is not. The fight against corruption is not for the governing party. No, it is not. The fight against corruption is not for any one segment of the society. It is a fight which must involve all of us. I know that they are primary duty bearers, but they can only do so much, because my experience tells me that the children of light are always ahead, are always behind the game. The children of darkness are always ahead. As we are assembled here today, I can imagine what they are doing. They are watching on live television, and they are saying, we can see them assembling there, and they are saying, we know what you are going to do. We know you are going to change the school curriculum, change it all you want, they are saying. We know you are going to say that all the anti-corruption bodies are going to work in unison. You can do that all you want. We know the president is going to suspend some of us, but we know we'll always have one of our own remaining. We know that the clergy are going to pray and curse some of us, but we will pray and curse them in return. That is what they are doing as we sit here. The question is, can we give up? No, we must not. We may make many mistakes, but the luxury we cannot afford is the luxury of giving up. Because it is incumbent upon us to save our nations. It is incumbent upon us to ensure that we protect the next generation, because they will ask. You know, there was a time when I read the history in the Bible of the Israelites, and I saw the story that says they moved from Egypt to the Promised Land. When you visited that land, you wonder why it took 40 years. Should have taken one day. But now I know better. I now know that when they left Egypt, there was too much Egypt in them. So that even when they left Egypt, they were still in Egypt. There is a sense in which we too have the Egypt of corruption resident in us. And as we move to the Promised Land, there is a sense in which many of us will simply circumnavigate the desert for the proverbial 40 years until we are consumed. Only a few of us, purged of Egypt, will get to the Promised Land. So our duty is to do what we must, to use this occasion, this meeting that has been put together by His Excellency the President, to ask ourselves what it is that we can do. You know, in many African countries, what they complain about is the lack of political will. In Malawi, I see political will. Rarely. In many African countries, rarely. And Your Excellency, because I'm a visitor, I can tell you this. You are doing a good thing. But within your own ranks, there are people who during the day, they'll tell you you are doing a good thing. But they are at night, they are cursing you. They are cursing you because you have taken food from their mouth. And when you take food from people's mouths, they are very bitter. But you chose to be the president and the people chose you. You made your bed, lie on it, and lie on it firmly, because history will judge you fairly if you continue on this course. Your Excellency, you must remember that it is not easy to fight the monster of corruption. It fights back. It fights back and fights back viciously. You too, Your Excellency, and those who are engaged in the fight against corruption, you'll be called names. You'll be maligned. If you call them dark, they'll call you even darker, they'll say. But yet you must never say die. You must never say die. And it's the duty of all of us who are present here to therefore ask ourselves fundamental questions. You, the clergy, are you reciting the nation's tone? Or you are saying with your mouth that which you do not believe in your mind? You know, there was a time I was talking to a friend of mine who is a preacher. And I told my friend that I know even the church is not spared. Because sometimes even the church, when they see the thieves entering their church, their preaching changes. If they had been saying how difficult it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God, Just as it is for a camel to enter the eye of the needle, when the thief approaches, he says, and to those who do not have, even the little they have shall be taken away, and it shall be given to those who have. I am urging today that in the fight against corruption, the good reverends who are present here, you must now begin to ask what is the source of the tithes that are coming to you. Because I now know that the church, because you are not subjected to taxation and because you can bank cash money, some of them come to you to launder their money. You must now ask yourself those fundamental questions. So you, the clergy, pray for us and pray for the nation. You, the traditional rulers whom we respect and who are present here, sometimes I think it is our borrowed habits that has made us embrace corruption. You, the traditional rulers, you must ask yourself, what can we do when we talk about Umuntu and Ubuntu? What are we saying? You go out there and beyond the curriculum in our formal education system, there is education in our African systems which is capable of inculcating a sense of duty and responsibility so that we may have intergenerational responsibility. You, the media who are present here, you, the media who give the oxygen of publicity to what we say, let us today liberate ourselves from sensationalization. Let us be warriors for truth and fact, because we shall only be set free when we are truthful and when we are factual. Do not give the oxygen of publicity to the thieves who reign amongst us. And you who are in public sector, ask yourself, what is meant in the holy books when it is said, thou shalt not reap where thou hast not sown? Stop reaping where you have not sown. And you who are students here, let us not be consumed in books without understanding that it is incumbent upon us to be the generation that will liberate Malawi and liberate Africa. It must be done. It can be done. And I have no doubt that we are the ones who must do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we are gathered here to reset the nation's moral tone. I remember in 1978 reading that great book by the great Nigeria, the late Chinua Achebe, and when he wrote that when you see a frog jumping into the daylight, there is something after its life. Today we are assembled here in daylight, there is something after our life. And I know the thing that is after our life. It is corruption. It is a monster. It is a monster that we must kill. It is a ghost that we must exorcise. I have no doubt in my mind that we can do it. Our duty today and our solemn vow is that we are assembled here to acquire a new spirit. Once we have acquired that spirit, let us go out into the world. The SCB, the DPP, all the bodies, if there were any conflicts amongst you, if there were conflicts in approaches, this is to the day that you must assemble and say, from today onwards, we are going to work as one unit, because if there is any disunity, the children of darkness will take advantage of it. Those of you who are here who are wondering what it is, conduct serious lifestyle audits. Those of you who are public servants, I hope one day, Your Excellency, this country shall make a solemn vow that if you are a minister in government, your child will never go to a private school. That if you are a minister in government, a public official, you shall never go to a private hospital. That if you are sick, you die here. Because it is only when we make public institutions worthy that people will begin to put money in those institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt in my mind as I look at you that these are the men and women who are going to spread the gospel. And let us remember, if we don't fight corruption, it will fight us, it will consume us, and the children of darkness will be the ones that will be singing hallelujah. Let us deny them that opportunity. Let us, we, the children of light, be the ones that sing hallelujah, for it must be done, because if it is not done, we too will be done. God bless you.
Another round of applause for Professor Lumumba for that powerful, inspirational talk. He did cite that corruption is a cancer that must be fought, and we must not give up the fight because it can be dealt with. Speaking of dealing with corruption, Your Excellencies, all protocols observed, allow me to now hand over to my colleague who is Chawezi Banda. This is a segment where we'll have a panel discussion where they'll basically be tackling the questions, are we doing enough in the fight against corruption? Where are we getting it right? And where are we getting it wrong? Allow me, Your Excellency, to repeat the same in Chichewa. Pakhale kugambirana, kumene nzanga Chawezi Banda, akhale ndithu akupanga ndi anthu osiyana-siyana. Koma kwenikweni akhala kugambirana kapena kufotokoza mafunso angapo. Kuti kodi zipangizo zimene tikugwiritsa ntchito kuti tithane ndi katangale ndi zokwanira? Kuti tikupanga zinthu zolondola? Tikulakwitsa pati, komanso tikulondola pati. Your Excellency, please allow me to now hand over to my colleague, Mr. Chawezi Banda. And let me also make mention of the panelists in this segment. Ms. Colleen Zamba, Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Honorable Justice of Appeal Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga from the Malawi Judiciary, Mr. Jimmy Lipunga, former CEO, Public-Private Partnership Commission, PPPC, and Professor Happy Kayuni, Dean of Faculty, Social Science, UNIMA. Chawezi Banda, it's your time.
Good morning. Your Excellency, Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, President of the Republic of Malawi. Your Excellency, Madam Monica Chakwera, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi. I will dispense with the rest of the already established protocol in the best interest of time. Your Excellency, all of us may be aware that the corruption virus has for the past decades attacked institutions in the country indiscriminately, as it has proved to transcend the social class, creed, as well as color. And to this effect, Mr. President, you have taken it upon yourself to say, no matter the cost or no matter how huge the cost may be to bear, we have got to assemble this high-level team of participants if it becomes part of the diverse range of solutions to the vice which is called corruption. At this point in time, Your Excellency, allow me therefore to just to reintroduce the panelists that we have here as we discuss matters of corruption in greater detail this morning. And our discussion this morning is premised on whether we are doing enough as a country in the fight against corruption by evaluating what is working and what is not working. Close to me here, I have the Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Ms. Colleen Zamba. A huge round of applause. Over there, I have Professor Happy Kayuni, who is the Dean of Faculty from the University of Malawi, Social Science. A clap for him. And to my far left, second from the last, I have Honorable Justice of Appeal, Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga from the judiciary. And at the far end there, I have Mr. Jimmy Lipunga, who is the former Chief Executive Officer of the Public-Private Partnership Commission. I should believe today he will speak from the perspective of the private sector. Welcome to the discussion that we have. The Transparency International, which is a global coalition against corruption, defines corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. In its discourse of corruption, the TI further clarifies corruption into 3 categories. 1, grand corruption. 2, political corruption. 3, petty corruption. I want to start with Madam SPC. How much in terms of recognition do we have as a country that we've got a problem at hand now that the president, through the SCB, has gathered all of us today to discuss these particular matters? How much of recognition does government have that we have a problem?
Thank you, moderator. The mere fact that the president himself has called for this conference and he's hosting this conference is a clear demonstration of the recognition, not so of the recognition, but the will, the desire to deal with the issues. We've had the previous speaker just now who has eloquently explained and addressed to the issues. But then, when you look around, it's not just this conference. I think the president has continuously, consistently spoken to these issues in his sonas, in the various speeches. Even of late, when he was in Mangochi, he talked of the foundation of the country and the foundation as a people. And because he has consistently said this, there are several things which have been done. The word enough is relative. We would say you are doing enough, but I think we can still do better as a people. When you look at the civil service, or the public service, the public service, the civil service is a center nerve, in a country, in the implementation of the agenda of the president. And because of that, that's why you are seeing that the Anti-Corruption Bureau has been strengthened a lot under this government, under the president's leadership. It takes a political will and a strong desire to be able to do that. In my experiences, some years back, I met somebody who was working in the Anti-Corruption Bureau in the UK, and she ran away because there was so much interference from the president, blocking progress on many issues, which everybody today can testify that that's not the case. The Anti-Corruption Bureau has been left on its own and have its independence to do what they want to do, but within the law. We've seen that the president has already demonstrated the no tolerance policy. It's a very clear policy under his government. And this is why he has said no sacred cows. And I think it's been demonstrated. We've seen his senior people whom he has laid out either that they clear their names or even dismissals. It can't go beyond that. Number 2, there are these dialogues which were taking place, which we had the presentation before, and several committees which have been put in place. The public procurement, of course, more is to be done, but digitalization is in the process. Actually, the President also made the Minister of Information to be information and digitalization, to ensure that digitalization is something which should be stressed and be implemented because it helps in the curbing of the fraud. And in addition, actually, he created the Presidential Delivery Unit in his office, which also went ahead to look at the various programs, projects, which were lying idle, some of them years, 7 years, 9 years, 4 years, but funds were being released for those projects, but nothing on ground. So today that we can even speak about corruption and be in a place like this, I think that's part of the demonstration. It's not like the corruption is taking place now. No, it has been there, but the political will has not been there to expose it and deal with it. So today, it means there's so much fight against it and to make sure that things move which should deliberate and deliver Malawians. I think for now, that's what I can say.
Thank you very much, Madam SPC. I want to get to the academic circles now. Professor Habe Kayuni from University of Malawi. I want us to speak to the theme of the conference, resetting the nation's moral tone. Quite conceptual. What are we talking about? How do you understand this particular theme?
Thank you, moderator. First of all, I need to explain that when we look at, for us in political governance, we look at what we call the critical juncture. A critical juncture is something that happens in the political arena, which is so powerful, important, transformational, and it also creates an opportunity for change. So in Malawi, we have had several critical junctures, and one of them, when we had a transition in May 1994, from one party to multi-party system of governance. That one was a critical juncture. And what studies have shown is that that critical juncture that we experienced in 1994 was good. We gained a lot, but unfortunately, we mismanaged the transition as well, so that we lost certain elements. For example, issues like human rights, we have so much emphasized on the rights, but not responsibilities. We just did a study in October, November last year, across the country, a qualitative study. The message was loud and clear that we failed to manage the transition. What we have seen after 1994, it's like we established a political architecture that defines the nation in one way or another. So what happened is that because we emphasized the rights and not responsibilities, it's like these cartoons which a big head, a big torso, but tiny legs, something like that. To an extent that there's misinterpretation of rights, and it is difficult to mobilize people. For example, traditional leaders find it difficult to mobilize people, and so on. So one of the issues about morals. Now let me briefly define what do we mean. Yes. Because that is an issue which we have failed to manage during the transition. So when we are talking about morals, it's that inner sense that helps us to distinguish right from wrong. Now, when you are talking about morals, values, and ethics, these terms are related, but they are not exactly the same. Let me start briefly by talking about values. Values define who we are. For example, being friendly, honest, etc. So it's about your personal identity, the values. And when you are talking about morals, these are the ones which are shared within a community. So it means that if within a community, the dominating attribute is being honest, then we say the morals are like this. We define it that way. And then ethics is when it has now been codified. So you have an organization, it can have code of ethics and so on, or even to some extent our laws, rules, regulations are like ethics. So it starts with values, and then we are talking about morals, and then ethics. If you violate the ethics, there are penalties. For example, you can be dismissed or you face disciplinary action. But if you violate morals, there is an issue of personal guilt or shame. So what happens is that in a community, if we rush to think about ethics, we rush thinking about coming up with good laws, good policies, and that, and yet we neglect the issue of values. We neglect the issue of morals. Then we are going to, even we in the academia, if we rush to teach students about how to repair an engine, how to come up with good policies, and yet we have not looked at values, we have not looked at morals. It's what a certain statesman said, we produce educated fools. So you have people who have degrees, diplomas, certificates, but the way they carry themselves, the way they behave, leaves a lot to be desired.
Okay.
So what we are trying to say with this theme is to say, let us reset, because we lost something in the transition. And we are saying, no, wait a minute. There was something about the Malawian. They were respected. They were polite. They were known all over. And somehow things have been lost. We see students vandalizing their own schools, destroying property, even chasing their own teachers from a school. This was not happening previously. So we are trying to reset that. Thank you, moderator.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I'll now go to Mr. Jimmy Lipunga, representing the private sector, former CEO of the Public-Private Partnership Commission. The SPC has set the tone in terms of a catalog of things that government is doing. We have also heard from the academic circles how they think about the theme for this conference today. I want us to look at what has been done so far. Do you think we are doing enough in the fight against corruption, speaking from the point of observation of the private sector?
Thank you so much. Again, let me commend His Excellency, the State President, for leading this initiative. And I must agree with the SPC that in itself demonstrates a commitment to rethink and also reorient ourselves towards a new Malawi. So that is very, very commendable. What I would just say is that as much as we have laws, and also SCB has done a lot of good work in the recent past, but also since it was established, my view is we could do a little more on the governance. It's good. It's one thing to have laws, policies, and the officials. It's quite another to have them function as was intended. And I think governance, both in the private sector and in the public sector, there's a lot that could be improved. I have had the privilege of working in both, and as much as statutes are very, very clear what the responsibilities of boards are, responsibilities of chief executive officers and the ministries, there's a lot of confusion sometimes. Board members don't have the authorities that they should have, and sometimes chief executives, their functions or powers are symbolic. If we're going to fight corruption, then we really need to be very intentional about setting governance standards. Let board members function as board members. Let the CEO have the, requisite authority that is expected of them. When I was the CEO, it was actually amazing that I had really no say in terms of procurement processes. The IPC were just, your juniors, but then when there's a fallout, you are the first to answer before Parliament. That sounds to me like a dysfunctional governance environment. Let ministers be clear what they are there for. What cabinet be very clear what it is there for. Principal secretaries must be under no doubt what they're responsible for. When you politicize these systems, then that's a beginning of the problem. I was more than aware in my own role when a cabinet minister would actually be frightened by a mere junior because of political clout. And so we need to also depoliticize the public sector so that governance systems are allowed to function effectively. As for private sector, again, the buzzword is corporate governance. We have corporate governance standards. There is even King 4 that emphasizes on ethical leadership. Ethical leadership, but also the concept of other-centeredness. What we call greed is actually an antithesis of other-centeredness. As a nation, we really need to put the nation above self. That's probably where I want to pause for now.
Thank you very much. I'll go straight now to Honorable Justice of Appeal, Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga. You have the mic, I can see now. Beautiful. As we proceed with the program, I want us to look at the interventions which have been put in place so far. Obviously, there must be gaps. That is why we find ourselves here today. You may wish to take us through some of the pieces of legislations that we have in the country that were all put guns blazing to fight against corruption. We should have some.
Okay. Thank you, moderator. Actually, from an appreciative point of inquiry, what we can say is that Malawi has done pretty well. We're always moving towards doing very well in the area of setting up an appropriate legal framework for combating corruption. Not only do we have the supreme law of the land, that is the Constitution, which gives us guidelines on national policies, but we also have the statutes, and there are several which have provisions to assist in combating corruption. For example, we have the Corrupt Practices Act, which not only establishes the office of the SEB, but also sets out offenses on corrupt practices. We have the Public Finance Management Act, which is indeed helping the finances, management of finances in the public sector. As my colleague here just mentioned, that sometimes it's surprising that in public institutions it's the IPC which is powerful. But if you go to the Public Finance Management Act, it puts actually the controlling officer, the PS, is the one who's supposed to be in control, and not just leave it to the internal procurement committees. Yeah, the other statutes that we have in place are the Financial Crimes Act, which was mentioned earlier by one of the presenters. We have the Penal Code, which just sets out the criminal offenses. Yeah, it's corruption as well as just the general criminal offenses. We have the Political Parties Act, which tries to regulate the registration of political parties as well as their sources of funding, how they should manage it and subject it to audit. Yeah, so in brief, I would say those are some of the statutes that we have in place. But beyond that, remember, we also have international conventions against corruption, which we also, as a country, have ratified and we're supposed to enforce. Thank you.
All right, before you leave the microphone, I want to come up with a follow-up question. In 2013 and 2014, the CJ, the current one, the Chief Justice, was the Director General of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. I engaged him on these very same matters of corruption. So it was a matter to do with whether we have sufficient laws or pieces of legislation to guard against plunder of public resources. The CJ said this country doesn't suffer from any deficiency of pieces of laws. We have the Corrupt Practices Act, the Public Procurement and Disposal of Assets Act, we have the Public Finance Management Act, we have the Assets Declarations Act, we have the Public Audit Act, a flurry of pieces of legislations we have in the country. But what lacks is the issue of integrity. Was he making reference to what we are discussing today, that perhaps somehow the social fabric finds its issues of morality badly broken?
Yes, to some degree, I would say that indeed, that is the challenge that we have. We have all these beautiful laws on paper, but the challenge sometimes is the implementation. I think as you heard from Dr. Kayuni, what he mentioned is that there's a human factor which goes in the implementation of these laws. We may have laws, good laws on paper, But if those who are in office are not willing to implement them according to how they were put there, then it is a challenge. Yeah, so indeed we do have beautiful laws. Yeah, but implementation is maybe what we should be spending more time discussing. And indeed, the fact that we have this conference today testifies to the fact that we have noticed, or it has come to our knowledge, that we are having challenges in implementing some of these statutes and advancing the anti-corruption agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go back to the academic circles. Professor Kayuni, as a country, do we have a set in the definite or definitive platform where we can say we have a moral compass in terms of how we conduct ourselves? Because issues of integrity are coming hot on the heels of having us perhaps come today and discuss these particular matters. Do we have any moral compass to the effect that we can say this is what drives us or what guides us in the fight against corruption?
Thank you, moderator. Yeah, it's a difficult question, but what I can say is that when you look at the Agenda 2063, it is very clear in black and white about, because this was based on a nationwide consultation. Let me just briefly allow me to say something about what is, when we are talking about a Malawian, what do we mean? I have two personal experiences. There was one case, I was at Frankfurt Airport, and somebody was looking at me, the way I was interacting, and later on, this one was a British, and they came to me and said, "Hey, are you from Malawi?" I said, why did you know that? How did you know that? And he said, no, he worked actually as a manager of a farm in Zimbabwe for a long time. And he said he had been interacting with people from Malawi, Mozambique, the whole region. And he said, when you look at a Malawian, you can immediately know that this one is a Malawian. Because they are polite, they are very nice people. That's what he said. And by just looking at me. And there was also another case whereby when I was doing my master's, I was supposed to meet my supervisor. So before meeting the supervisor, I was waiting for him in the secretary's office. And there were two individuals there. And he said, please take a seat and wait there. And I never uttered a word. But when he looked at me later on, he said, are you from Malawi? I said, yes. He said, And then he also explained certain attributes about Malawian. So there's something about Malawian which maybe some of us don't know. But others, people are able to see. When you look at preamble to the Malawi 2063, this is what it says. It talks about patriotism, hard work, integrity, self-help, and also talks about transformative leadership. These are some of the values that were highlighted during the nationwide consultation, that these are the values which represent us as Malawians. But somehow we have lost them. And let me quickly mention that the same 2063 mentions the issue of hating handouts. I should mention this, that in the transition, Malawi, as I mentioned, that it is as if we went through a transition, but not a transformation. So we went through a transition from one-party system to multi-party, but there was no transformation. What has happened is that one of the contributing factors to the corruption is the issue of handouts. And the Malawi 2063 is mentioning that handouts is one example of a case which is destroying our social fabric. And it is also highlighted in the Political Parties Act. And as already mentioned by some of the panelists, it's implementation, which we are maybe slow on. But the issue is that handouts have seriously destroyed our political socialization.
Okay.
And we need to also think about it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll get now to Madam SPC. We have been hearing stories concerning funding of the Anti-Corruption Bureau lately. But we are glad today to hear that the SCB is relatively being funded on time and I've used the term relative, is quite technical, is relatively getting enough or sufficient funding. Is this commitment there to stay from government to say, you make sure that from now onwards that the SCB will be given all that they need and the support that they require for them to be functional and get to the core of the problem that we have at hand?
Moderator, I don't know. When this government came into power in 2020, the first thing that was done was to increase funding for SCB. Actually, in 2019 to 2020, they had about 4.3 billion. But in 2020-21, that was increased to 5.3 billion by an extra billion. And 2021 to 2022, it was also further increased to 6 billion. Within the 2 years, they've had like a 46% increase in their financing. Not only financing, but even in the human resources. There's been an increase from their establishment. They are now at 71% establishment. Of course, you appreciate that it can't be 100% in 1 year because government has so many other commitments to look at. But this has been prioritized and hence that increase. Even as late as a week ago, Minister of Finance processed another 400 million to them, which is over and above the budget because of the new developments, things which they have to follow up and hire more staff or on contracts to support the investigations they are carrying on. That alone is a clear demonstration of that commitment. You know, I mentioned earlier that it is so easy for a president to make a Kwan say, stop this. It's so easy because he has the powers. But this president has said, no, I want this done. I don't know for Malawians what more commitment they would want or a strong will, desire to deal with corruption. So since this was specific for me to the SCB, that's what's the position.
All right. Thank you very much. Maybe before you leave the microphone, I want us to allow you to delve a bit deeper in terms of the moral aspects that we want. You and I have met before and have discussed to say, timango gambado za corruption, timona ngati maofesi matime, koma midzimuso zipupu zikuchitika. Pamene simukadako ndamudala nkulapo.
Thank you. I think the theme which is talking about resetting morals. Mwina kwa kukulu tinene kuti Katangale sikuti tingoti alimboma. Chifukwa Katangale sangachitike mbali imodzi mbali inayi ili yolondola paine ugwirizana. Pali mawu m'buku lathu lili manual ya moyoyi kuti awiri sangaende limodzi asanagwirizane. Pamakhala kuti kuseri pali kugwirizana. Tikaonanso m'midzi ndingoti tiyang'ane thread ya society kukafika pasi mpaka kumudzi. Muona kuti lero ukapita kumudziko mwina unakagula malo munda. Mwini wake ugulitsa maloyo mwagwirizana mwalipirana. Koma uva kuti ogrupu kuti odzayende m'malire mupeke 300,000. Koma malire mwini wake omunda mudayenda kale mudagwirizana. Ayi kenako otiye udzayendenso m'malire okuti 20%. Ya mtengo umene udagwirira mundawo. Zilimo m'malamulo zimenezo. Komanso kale zinkachitika. Ayi. Wina lero m'midzimu kungopita pamunda pa munthu wina nukakumba soya yese usiku ine ndimadziwa kuti timapita kumunda kuchilere noiya nkumakumba sawa zija nkumazisiya kuti zibauma mwina mwezi udutsa kuti mukatani mukambothothola sawa koma lero m'midzimu mpaka munthu akachite hayala filitana lolika munyamulire katundu usiku nusiku nsangansango pita naye kunyumba kuti angabedwe ndi zubwerera zimene ananena a professor aja kuti kodi ngati anthu ma values yathu ma morals yathu tidati chani mwana nyumba akabwera nkumakapisa mumphika kutengamo ndiwo timakwapula koma tunena kuti lero lakhoza makachita zimenezo ife nkumasekerera chifukwa zoyambira umenewo mwana apite sukulu tunyamula makato naza kudya bwanji aliyense wakamusiye pa galimoto yake mwana koma basi ya sukulu ilipo tabweretsa kakhalidwe kamene nkachilendo ndeka ubweretsa ulo anawa kuti azikula ndi mtima kuti ineyo entitlement yanga ndi iyi siningakhale nklasi pokhapokhala ntakhala ndi team limit ine nili pano ine sindadyepo team limit ku sukulu koma ndine SPC timakwera basi ni concession ticket upita ku sukulu tikatengako nthawi zina kachimanga kokazinga timekaso mbotolo utsekera chitsonongo nde lero zimene zidabwera ana kumangokhala mmakutumu ngakhale audutsa nsewu koma mmakutumu ayika chani ma earphone mukuti pali chikhalidwe chimene ndikuganiza kuti mmene ananena aja tachitaya pena pake kuti kodi khalidwe lathu ndilotani kuyambira kumudziko so ngati kuyambira kumudzi kuti ufumu luchita izi mnyumbamo tuchita izi zimene zija zimene tikukula nazo mpaka kufika so mtawuni muno mwina nawonso ulukopera zimene tikuchitira mtawuni muno kuti tutsogolera kuti izi ndezuyene uchitika ndiye nawonso kumudziko anoti ati izi ndiye moyo ndiye sichoncho ayi ndiye ndikuganiza kuti moral campus iyambire uku timaphunzira ku sukulu civics zomwe zidachotsedwa titafika timene tuti ma transition tafika tili Malawi wa lero ndiye kuti chotse civics kulibe anthu mmakhala usadziwa zambiri yanu ndiye zinthu ngati zipeze chanchifukwa chake tinaona aja amachita present apa kuti primary school curriculum tibweretsenso zinthu ngati izi ndi nchifukwa chake a president amanena kuti resetting the morals and resetting this nation and ife mu civil service charge imene ndapatsidwa to restore the dignity of the civil service, the public service, and be able to do things which are right. Palibe munthu oti akachita kutiuza kuti kodi ichi kuba tudziwa tonse mbachibadule chathu kuti sikoyenera nkola kwika
ziko mwambiri madamu SPC ndati ndapatse mpata kuti alankhule noiya Chabino, I want to go to Mr. Jimmy Lipunga, former CEO of the Public Private Partnership Commission. I want to get your final thought on the issue of morality in terms of our society. We are here to have an honest assessment of how we are doing our things, and we are doing that by asking the question, are we doing enough by evaluating where we are getting it right and where we are getting it wrong? Do you think we are on the right path in terms of getting back the morality that we want to fight against corruption? I'll give you a time constraint of 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. I thought it was very similar to the previous one.
Yes.
Are we doing enough? Yes, to some degree, but we could do more. And I think my colleagues have already elaborated within the constraints you've given me. I would rather perhaps go to what we should do more.
No problem.
I think after, the transition in the mid-90s, there was overemphasis on human rights, and my colleagues have already said that. But something that is almost never publicly acknowledged is the role of family. So when I looked at the presentation, I saw youth, I saw women. I just couldn't understand how these would integrate. I work in the church, and I work in various forums. And I want to mention that children acquire their moral conscience between the ages of 3 to 7. By the time you interact with the youth, the damage has already been done. And therefore, I would like to make a strong appeal that as a nation, let's recognize family, fathers and mothers, as very important vehicles for depositing moral values to our children. I come from a cultural background, and some of you may come from that, but I'll not tell you what it is. But fathers don't have much authority. And so when you said women, I was wondering why not fathers? Because fathers are actually a microcosm of, head of government. And some private sector institutions are recognizing that. ESCOM did convene, an outreach for men. Eastern Produce, a tea, estate, at a 1 week, because people are now realizing that dealing with one gender, you never get anywhere. So God is the ultimate deposit of values, the source of values, and the laws can only regulate a human being, but not regulate a heart. As we produce more laws, we just increase the potential number of prisoners, and never will we transform the human heart. And so mandate the fathers, mandate the mothers to do what they are called to do in the children's life. Finally, there was talk of education. In my private life, I've interacted with some TTCs. A teacher used to spend 2 years at a TTC. Later on, a few years, I discovered it was cut down to 1 year. Of late, it's initially a few weeks. Teachers, there's a song in Swahili, mpuzitsi wako woyamba ni Mulungu, wachiwiri ni makolo ako, wachitatu ndi mphunzitsi. Dziko ni mphunzitsipo koma limaphunzitsa litalanga. And therefore, we need to do everything possible to equip teachers. They do far much more for our children, much more realize. Incentivize them, give them the mandate. If they ask a child to comb their hair, and they go to court to obtain an injunction against that teacher, do we really believe next time a teacher will lose sleep? And some of this moral decay has to do with our attitude to teachers has been very, very bad over the years. I think it's time a nation recognizes the important roles of our teachers. The more we invest in them, the more will our children really acquire what it takes for a nation that is characterized with integrity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Justice of Appeal. Justice of Appeal, Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga from the Judiciary. Someone said if corruption in Malawi was a snake, its head would probably be in procurement and abuse of customs. I hope I'm right. Beautiful. Now, and this person also said, as a country, Malawi loses about 30% of its domestically generated resources through the loopholes of corruption and abuse. There is a proposal, and I understand pretty well that it is at a very advanced stage to establish the Economic and Financial Crimes Court. Is this a step in the right direction? Where are we, Honorable Justice?
Thank you, Moderator. Indeed, as Ms. Chikanken had reported during the presentation earlier today, we are moving towards establishing a specialized division of the High Court, the Financial Crimes Court. Basically, consultations have been done, the bill has been prepared, and I think it may be tabled before Parliament during this sitting, but anyway, we are all watching the parliamentary proceedings. So basically, one of the complaints which were raised by the stakeholders and even one of the delegates who intervened earlier this morning was to the effect that there are delays in the disposal of matters involving corruption cases or financial crimes. Yeah, so under Annex 2, a suggestion was made that we should establish a specialized court. So this is why we have set that in motion. Yeah, and apart from that, we may also work on rules of procedure and practice for that court. But at the end of the day, as we had noted, we do have good laws. We do come up with good laws in this country. What I think will determine on whether we'll improve or not is at the stage of implementation. Yeah, so at the stage of implementation, this court to be fully operational, it will need funding. And the good thing is that at least we have heard from the SPC that they have increased the funding for ACB. But remember, under NACS, there are 12 pillars. So the expectation is that there will be like a sector-wide approach towards the funding, so that all the pillars under NACS are able to have similar funding so that they can implement those programs. Remember, the Financial Crimes Court is also coming out under NACS 2, where judiciary is the lead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will, at some later stage, during our course of the discussion, engage the audience for comments and perhaps questions, should you have any. Maybe let me just finish with the two panelists on my left, and then we can give you a chance to raise a question or a comment if you have any. I want to go to Professor Kayuni from the University of Malawi. You heard our keynote speaker, Professor Lumumba, deliver that passionate and inspirational speech today. What is your quick take from what he said?
I think Professor Lumumba indeed highlighted a number of issues. As usual, he indeed inspires most of us. And he has highlighted the issues related to skeptics, saying that, what are you talking about? What are you discussing? That is profound, because I was checking social media, etc. Some people were saying the same thing. I don't know whether he checked our social media, local social media. But that is exactly what was being highlighted,
Yes.
What are they talking about? You see, we in academia, we believe in asking questions, in having discussions. We believe that transformation starts with asking critical questions, reflection, etc. So when he was talking about that, I felt very good that we should continue having these sessions so that we can ask questions, we can reflect on what we are doing. And in my view, that was central. Otherwise, whether it is political parties, within political parties, we should be asking questions. We should be reflecting on what is happening in our nation,
All right.
in our families. We should be asking questions in our churches.
All right.
We should be asking when we have committees of apostles or whatsoever, the clergy, when they sit down, they should be able to ask critical questions. When we are meeting as a farmers club, we should be asking critical questions. That's all about political socialization. It goes around like that. Right. When we ask critical questions and we reflect and we think about it and we map the way forward, that is quite helpful. So from his talk, I can highlight that as my take-home message.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Madam SPC, do you know that as we sit here and discuss to quote Professor Lumumba, do you know that children of darkness are strategizing on how to fight back in terms of what we are discussing now? And they'll do that in the evening or at night, the children of darkness. Do you know that?
Moderator. Thank you. You know, it has been there from the start. And he threw him on the earth. So these things start in the spiritual realm. I know. And I know that my president knows better, because he has been on there and he's continuing in this leadership. The children of darkness, I know they are wise. But then it has also been said that be as wise as the children of darkness, but clean as a dove. it is their job, because it's their nature, to always try to demolish, what is happening. But one thing I'm clear is that when light comes, darkness gives up. Simungalowe munchipinda, mmene muli mdima, nkubwera kaya mwabwera nkandulo. Mwayenero yera, nakasi kwabwera kandulo mdima uchoka. It's just that light yo, it's in levels. Kaliboli ni light. Kandulo ndi light. Floodlight yo ndi light. So to enter no in those levels, to deal with those. One thing I'm sure, they will be dealt with. And that's why we are here today.
All right.
They can never ever win. Because some of us in our faith, we believe that Jesus Christ already won the battle. And always, so mukakauti punali mpira wa Malawi uja unawina tawi chatina ndima Eastern Challenge Cup, Malawi ya wina. Kodi pano pata kauti awuchita replay. Tizichita so mantha tudziwa kuti dawida in the replay. So the life to ukaba no but the replay, it's already won. We are just demonstrating to manifest physically.
All right.
So children of darkness walipo, they will strategize. As the day na bodzalo likunenedwa kali mu palimawu mu miyambo pepani mwina ningochula bame ondutseka palimawu mu miyambo akuti zima munyasa Yehova. Zimene zima munyasa Yehova, maso yonyada, manja yakupha anthu osachimwa, lilime lonama.
Odzala udani.
Umabzala udani usokoneza anthu. Ndiye pali zimene zozo anthu apita kwa bwana kwa president ukanena bodza lini. Ena apita sobaliya akanena bodza lina. Zimenezo zima munyasa Mulungu. Ndengati zima munyasa athana nazonso. Koma athana nazo dzera mwa anthuso ifeyo osiyana-siyana afe amene tili m'maposition osiyana-siyana konse kumudzi muno m'maofesi ndiye alipo awupanga zawuzo koma tithana nazo.
Before you leave the mic, Madam SPC, quickly, I'll also give you a time constraint of a minute. I want you to tackle, in reaction to, you should tackle what was presented, part of what was presented by an official from SCB on the progress of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy. They have talked about establishment or reviewing the school curriculum. They are also talking about establishment of e-governance and digitalization, asset recovery, whistleblower initiative, lifestyle audit, establishment of a financial crimes court. I believe all these fall under your jurisdiction in terms of coordination. How are you going to approach the coordination when it comes to the realization or implementation of all these good ideas that the SCB does have?
First of all, I don't think they're just ideas, because implementation already started. We have heard of the crimes court, which division of the courts. So amendment of the Courts Act has, it's now presented before Parliament.
Yes.
So for that process to take place is from the Public Service,
yes.
Minister of Justice, which is government, and the executive. All those processes have been done, implying that there's some coordination which is taking place for that to happen. There's also a report on the school curriculum, which there's a lead, the Ministry of Education and the Institute, Domasi Institute of Education. So there's already designed that you are the lead on this, you are the lead on this, you are the lead on this. And then all these come together because that is a pillar which is under the executive pillar, in that process. So I'm aware.
All right.
We are on track, and we are moving forward.
Thank you very much. It's now time for us to engage the audience. If you have a question or two or a comment relating to what has been discussed here, please feel free to do that by show of a hand, and I'll recognize you. Remember to introduce yourself and where you're coming from. And a request, just keep your question or comment clear and concise. I should start with our chief there, Inkosi Amakos. I forgot the designation. Yes, I'll start with you. Can someone please take the microphone to Inkosi Amakosi Gomani for his quick reaction? Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies, and everyone else in here. I really wanted to thank all the presenters, the panelists, for their points on moral values, especially when we look at the family setting. Your Excellency, allow me to continue in Chichewa. Ndichofunikira dimonga anthu amalawi kumazidziwa kuti ifeyo ndifendani. Panthawi imene tazidziwa kuti ndifendani ndipo khapo pamene tingakwanirisedi kukwanirisa zolinga zathu. Andi mapresenters athu ayankhula bwino kwambiri makamaka pa nkhani yonena kuti tiziyambira pabanja, anthu azikhala aulemu, azikhala ozindikira ma values osiyana-siyana amene munthu umene akukhalira. Popanda chimene chocho ndikuti sizingapite pasogolo. Muganize kuti mwana kuntuma kusika kuti akagule mafuta ophikira, nkubwera ndi chenji koma chenji chija wachisunga mthumba. Pamawa azakhale kuti yeyo ndi MP, ndi minister, kaya president. Chenji cha dziko la Malawi azachitani. Nthawi zambiri ana masiku ano akapita kunsika akufuna kuti akabwerera utire kufunsa kuti chenji changa chili kuti 24 hours later pepani ndimayisa ndikhozogwisa ntchito. So zinthuzi zikuyambira at the grassroots level, and the grassroots level is at the family level. Nde ife monga Malawi tigwirane manja kuthandizana kuti kamoro DK kamene katika konzi tibwerere kuchimake. Zikomo kwambiri, Your Excellency.
Zikomo kwambiri. I can see a female there. Please be concise. I'll give you a minute to ask your question. Please.
Thank you so much, Your Excellencies. My name is Rebecca Hami, representing the Youth Pillar NIC. My question is to Hon Justice of Appeal, Dorothy. I remember when we conducted the dialogue, we mentioned the whistleblowing policy and the need to have guiding or protective laws towards the whistleblowers. Since that happened, we have seen a number of murder cases being reported, especially young people. And this has really brought a lot of intimidation and fear. So my question is, what are we doing in speeding up the guiding laws, knowing that our lives are at stake? Recently, we had a case in Dedza and some other district to say they were on top of the game in monitoring public funds. And we don't have ndalama zonena kuti tikhoza kutuluka kudziko kuno kuti mwina tikaziteteze. So knowing that this is putting our lives at stake, what are we doing? And to the murder cases that have been reported, how are we handling them to ensure that at least it brings us peace, that the government is doing something in protecting us as we are also fighting in the fight against corruption in Malawi? Thank you.
Thank you very much. One last contributor. I can see, yes, it should be a chief. Yes, please. 1 minute, please. 1 minute. Time is not on our side. They'll give you the microphone. No. Oh, yes.
Your Excellencies, all protocols observed. I would like to talk on moral decay, especially among the youth of this country. We are losing the war and the fight against moral decay. My colleague, Paman Chief Gomane, talked about the family at the center. But then these families today do not have the authority that our parents used to have. Agudi mudipanyira ufuru wanga. Ufuru wachana. Mwana wa ngono agunena amuza makolo mudipanyira ufuru wanga. So I think there is need for the government, through our MPs, to come up with a law that will enforce discipline among our children, right from the family, the schools, and in all education establishment. Now, we still have the forces of darkness right here. They are not only watching us on television, but some of them are here. Corrupt people. Corrupt people, some of them are ministers, some of them are chiefs, some of them are civil servants. And I think government must call a spade and start fighting corruption. So I thank the President for having been courageous enough to host this conference. And I thank Professor Lumumba. Nakushukuru sana. Umetoka mbali, but you've got the love for this country. We should help one another. So inuso my journalists, don't be over sensationalizing issues. Talk about the real issues happening in the country, to building this country to be a better place for us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think because I had already recognized that gentleman, he can proceed. I'll give you a minute, please, and then we can get the responses on what have been raised.
Thank you very much. Traditional Authority Maulambia from Chitipa. Yes, we are assembled here because our president assembled us. We thank him so much. But we have a problem. Our people in the villages up there are asking us questions that when you go to the conference, go and express this. Anti-corruption is investigating a lot of cases, and I think they investigate too much. They take too long to convict these people. We hear somebody has been convicted. Next morning, he's on bail, and that seems to die. So this is why even those who investigate, those who are doing investigations, they may be the same people who are shooting, who are anti-corruptors. So there must be a system of punishing to screen these people so that they work. People want to see results out there. Please don't investigate for too long, too much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, it seems all credit is going to you, realizing the fact that discussions that appeared improbable have now gained traction. This is exactly what you wanted by bringing together all these people to brainstorm on how best we can go about the fight against corruption in the country. I want to get to Justice of Appeal, Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga from the Judiciary. There was a question directed at you, and then I'll solicit 1 minute comments from all of you, and then we move towards winding up. Quickly, Justice Kaunda.
Thank you for that intervention. I think just to mention that on whistleblowers, we do have some pieces of legislation which have specific provisions on protecting whistleblowers, such as the Political Parties Act, the Trafficking in Persons Act. Yeah, so in terms of that strategic objective under Annex 2, later on I think we'll give you an update on what has been done, other than just to mention that even before whatever some policy has been formulated, just to mention that, especially in public institutions, we should be aware that we also have corruption and fraud prevention policies, which also contain provisions on whistleblowers. Yeah, and courts also have inherent jurisdiction within them when they are approached by prosecutors to issue orders in order to protect victims of crimes who can be potential witnesses in criminal cases. Yeah, so even before we do formulate those policies, you can still approach the courts and orders will be issued to protect those who are victims of crime or potential witnesses. Thank you.
No, maybe before you drop the microphone,
Yes.
there have been concerns from our chiefs there to say maybe with the moral decadence and decay that we have in our society, there is need for enactment of pieces of legislation so that can bring back the morality that we want in society. Anything to that effect?
We hear what the chiefs are saying, but as even Professor Lumumba had said earlier on, we have more than enough laws. But the challenge at the base of it is the human factor, the conduct, the individual choices and conduct that we make. So the chiefs are the people who are representing the people in the community. If they're of the view that we do need a particular piece of legislation to that effect, that's welcome. They'll approach their MPs, yeah, then they'll set the process in motion. That's what I think I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Kayuni from the University of Malawi, tying the loose ends of our discussions, what could be your quick take on what has been discussed?
My quick take is that possibly we should, I've heard so much about from concerning traditional leaders, and one of them, my chief is around, I am honored with that. But what is important is that they can use that platform. Studies we have conducted have consistently said the chiefs are the most trusted in Malawi. We are not talking about, since 1999, all the surveys that we have conducted say that. And it's a platform that they have. Amakapa maliro, pachani, umayankhula antu. It's an opportunity which I think they can use that as well. So apart from the family, as my colleague mentioned, we also have these institutions which are there, which are very important, and they can be used to our benefit to make sure that we have a strong society and so on. And also our political parties, because of my background in political governance, I will not allow myself to go and sit down if I don't say this. Political parties are critical in a democracy. We cannot talk about a good democracy if political parties are not good. So it's important that within political parties, they should take this message seriously as well, because the political parties also set the tone and so on. And quickly, in 1990, there was a case, a certain politician was going around handing out maize. And one civil society leader was asking to say that, and the politician responded, "Mamuona nkulu yafuna anthu azifa kumuziko. Iwe mamoto uzifunsafunsa loti kodi anthu ali ninjala chifukwa chani? Ukundifunsa kuti chimanga tachitenga kuti." And the people were saying, yes, akunena bwino msogoleri amene wandale amene amanena zimene. Which is wrong, because that is what we are talking about. We as Malawians, we must make sure that we take our leaders to task, asking them, let us ask critical questions. Where are you getting this? And then it will set the tone, which is good for our democracy. Our political socialization will improve. So these are the areas which I think are also critical. Our traditional leaders can use that platform. Let us not just wait for funding from donors, etc. We have other forums where we can do that. And also, political parties are critical in setting the tone. And so within political parties, there should be real democracy and so on. And that will have an impact on the way we strategize and act in our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll finish with the SPC, but now I want to get to Mr. Jimmy Lipunga from the private sector. Mr. Lipunga, we have heard that in the report of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy number 2, which commenced in 2019 and is running for 5 years up until 2025 or 2024, somewhere around about that. They are saying in this country we seem to have some spectators in the fight against corruption. You and I know this, and certainly I want to get your final thought on this particular issue. Today, when the president gathered us all here, the idea is to get ideas from all sectors of the country, because the fight against corruption has got to be one that takes the multi-stakeholder approach. Do we really have spectators, and what should we do in the fight against corruption?
Indeed, moderator, we have lots of spectators, and their premise is corruption allegedly is a victimless crime, which is actually not true. All of us should participate. There should be no spectators, because corruption, from analysis, as you put it, moderator, 30% of the cost of infrastructure, 30 to 40%, yes, actually is a leakage to corruption, yes, yes, which now frustrates access to services, access to electricity, access to water, access to various public services are actually undermined by this leakage of corruption. So we all, in the end, in fact, end up suffering. There's another point, as I'll just utilize the 1 minute, and that is to say, creating a right environment for a life of integrity is also another important thing. And the scarcity of services, scarcities of opportunities, whether it is in university or whatever it is, can actually fuel corruption. And this is as a good opportunity as I would ever have. We need to think seriously about a development bank in this country, because without a development bank, which is a source of venture capital, we cannot really hope to grow the economy with the emergence of, or at least boosting up the manufacturing sector. Because economic growth has been slow because of lack of that impetus, people are actually scrambling for the little opportunities that are there. And so let's rethink about how can we grow the economy. Yes, we have commercial banks that actually deal with the short-term lending, but for long-term, high-risk lending, we do require a development bank. And it's been lacking for many, many years. A country like Malawi, there is no way you can hope to really grow the economy without a development bank. And this is something that has a role to play even in the corruption. It optimizes opportunities. It allows young people to have something to do and expand the markets, as it were. Final, I don't think that people can indulge in corrupt and be happy. I doubt it very much. And the corruption will increase stress. I don't think you will sleep. And so the consequences of corruption in terms of health and just the element of having an unsettled mind, I would strongly recommend it's not worth pursuing. That's really an additional comment I wanted to add.
All right, thank you very much. I also give the Justice of Appeal, Dorothy Nyakaunda Kamanga, to give us her final thought. But maybe, Your Excellency, you've seen Mr. Jimmy Lipunga seizing the moment and trying to speak or lobbying for the Chamber of Commerce and Industry in terms of the need for a development back in the country. But that is all welcome. Honorable Nyakaunda Kamanga, quickly, your final thought on what we have discussed.
Director of Ceremonies, just to mention that as the legal sector, we are working towards, I think, handling matters involving corruption cases of financial crime speedily. Yeah, and just to mention that the delays, as much as I think some of the delegates were pointing to the judiciary, it's so many factors. The delays could be at the investigation stage, at the prosecution stage, or even at the judgment delivery stage. But one thing that we have agreed as a criminal justice system is that let us, maybe for these corruption cases and financial crimes, let us set up a specialized court with the hope that indeed we'll be able to speedily handle these matters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam SPC, how do you wrap up our discussion this afternoon?
Thank you. I think we've already taken a lot of time, yes, so I don't want to go into much, but to point out that the issues which have been raised by our chiefs there have taken note. I think Paramount Kiungu talked of the rights that children claiming rights from their own parents. I think it's something we'll look into and see how we can move forward, because honestly, with a lot of teenage pregnancies, getting pregnant at age of 16 is not a right. It's a moral decay. You know, wearing something which is almost half your body, I mean, it's a moral decay. What is wrong in dressing the way I've dressed? So does it make me any lesser? So I think these are some of the basic things in our lives and day-to-day lives which we need to look into. They are all part of the package of resetting our morals. And actually, I still like quoting the manual of my life and our lives, that righteousness exalts a nation, but sin brings reproach. And late evangelist Billy Graham, when he was asked the top 3 things one time, he said, number 1 is character, number 2 is character, and number 3 is character. Finally, there's nothing which is too lost that it cannot be recovered or restored. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, on that note, we have also come to the very end of our panel discussion that we organized so that we could discuss issues pertaining to corruption in the country. But allow me to end the discussion with a quote from one great Greek philosopher who said, "What a man needs to get ahead in this life is a powerful enemy, because the antagonist is our helper." End of quote. What it means is corruption is an enemy that we all agree unanimously that it is an enemy that we need to fight today. We will only strengthen our resolve and fight convincingly this vice that we have amidst us. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and allow me to afford my panelists a picture before we leave with your indulgence. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, Chawezi Banda, for that powerful panel discussion. Mwina ndingofotokoza munchicha kunena kuti tinali ndi segment Your Excellency pamene anthu amafunsa mafunso komanso kuthira ndemanga zawo makamaka nkhani yokhudzana ndi katangale, koma tinaona kuti iyayi panali ndithu manja ochulukirapo. Tingokupepesani kuti mwina sitinakhale ndi nthawi yambiri yoti muyankhule kapena muthire ndemanga, koma masanano mukhoza ndithu kubweranso ku breakaway session kuti mwina tikhale tikumva kuti ndemanga zanu komanso mafunso anu ndi ati komanso ndi otani. Your Excellency, allow me to now call upon the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Titus Mvalo, to make his statement, and after that he will then invite you to give your official opening address. Honorable Minister.
Your Excellency, the State President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus Makathi Chakwera, Your Excellency, the First Lady, Madam Monica Chakwera, the Right Honorable Speaker of Parliament, Madam Catherine Gotani-Hara, MP, Your Lordship, Justice Life Mochikopa, Justice of Appeal, SC, and all Lords, the Secretary of the President Cabinet, Ms. Corinne Zamba, all Cabinet Ministers present, the Honorable Attorney General, Mr. Taibo Chakaka Nyirenda, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Dr. Stephen Kayuni, all members of Parliament here present, the Director General of the SCB, Ms. Martha Zuma, members of the Diplomatic Corps, all senior government officials present, members of the press, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me begin by welcoming you all. First, Your Excellency, and all invited delegates to this National Anti-Corruption Conference. Your Excellency, I feel privileged this morning, or this afternoon maybe, to stand before Your Excellency and all invited guests on this important occasion and to make a few remarks with your permission, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, let me start by thanking you very much for hosting this anti-corruption conference under the theme, Resetting the Nation's Moral Tone, which has granted us, the people of Malawi, an opportunity to take stock of what we have achieved so far and renew our commitment in the fight against corruption. Your Excellency, this occasion also reaffirms your government's unwavering commitment towards eradicating corruption in the country. At this stage, maybe let me just reflect and ask, where have we missed the fight in the past? Have our strategies been not the right ones? Prosecution of offenders is no doubt important and must continue vigorously. But as we all know, investigations, arrest, and prosecution come at the tail end after corruption has taken place already. And how successful have prosecutions so far been in any case? Has prosecution been a deterrent at all to corruption? And the answer seems to be no. Why is it so? Should emphasis perhaps be more on mindset change, patriotism, and prevention? These and others, no doubt, will be some of the questions or some of the areas that delegates will be reflecting upon in their deliberations. Your Excellency, corruption is evil. It is among the major impediments standing in the way of our country's development. It diverts resources into pockets of few selfish individuals and reduces the capacity of government to deliver basic social services. Corruption propels inequality and socio-economic injustice as it favors the rich at the expense of the poor majority. So although others have called corruption a cancer, which I agree, and Professor Mumba called it a cancer too, I entirely agree with him. It spreads like a cancer in a community. But I would think it's maybe worse than a cancer, in that it kills, because cancer kills the patient, just the one suffering from it. But corruption kills masses of people, innocent people who did not take part in the corruption. So to that extent, I would say it is worse than cancer. Your Excellency, it is against this background that since you assumed office, you have made it clear, both in words and in action, that corruption will not be tolerated at any level. This stand emanates from the super high five pillars, but also from your own personal commitment to this noble cause of fighting corruption. In fact, ending corruption, as you put it, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, the first step you took when you came to power was to increase the budget and funding to the SCB for smooth running of its operations. Recently, Your Excellency, your government has also allocated an extra 400 million kwacha to assist the Bureau with investigation and prosecution of a number of cases that it is pursuing. To further demonstrate your seriousness in the fight against corruption, Your Excellency have allowed the SCB to increase its staffing levels and operate without any interference. This is genuine political will, sir, and we thank you for that. Your Excellency, my ministry has embarked on a number of initiatives aimed at strengthening the legal framework in the anti-corruption drive. Among them, my ministry is working with other key stakeholders towards the creation of a financial crimes court. It has been already mentioned by a number of speakers before me. And that has been your dream, Your Excellency, to have this court operate, as you have put it in several times in your in the two sonas, the first two sonas, you mentioned the creation of the court. It is now a reality. It will the bill that's going to put the court into creation is the Courts Amendment Bill 2022. And that bill, Your Excellency, I can confirm, will be presented to Parliament at this sitting of Parliament. It is our belief that this will help reduce the time it takes to dispose of corruption and other financial crimes cases in this country, because judges who will be assigned to this court shall have no other work except to deal with matters of financial crime. And in the long term, Your Excellency, it also build a specialization in those judges, which in turn will enhance their ability to determine such cases with speed. Your Excellency, it will be remiss of me not to thank you for single-handedly sourcing funds for this conference, the first of its kind in this country, to be championed by head of state. This, Your Excellency, is a clear demonstration that your government is taking the fight against corruption to another level like never before. Ladies and gentlemen, let us all stand up and give the President, Dr. Makathi Chakwera, a big round of applause for these achievements in the corruption fight. May I ask you to stand up, please? Thank you very much. Your Excellency, I wish to pledge my ministry's support that through the relevant agencies will not relent in our efforts to fulfill the constitutional mandate of promoting justice, accountability, and transparency in the administration and use of public resources. It is my hope, therefore, that all stakeholders present here and those listening through other media platforms would take their roles seriously in order to properly guide and the implementation of anti-corruption programs in their respective sectors. Your Excellency, I should not take too much of your time and that of delegates who are eagerly waiting to hear from you, Your Excellency, and to continue to deliberate and bring out their ideas on how to tackle corruption in the country. It is now, therefore, my singular honor to request Your Excellency to address this gathering and the nation and to officially open the conference. Thank you, Your Excellency, and all present for your attention. May the Almighty God bless our nation and lead us in this war on corruption, since it does fight back ferociously. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, sir.
Your Excellency, Madam Monica Chakwera, First Lady of the Republic of Malawi. Your Honor, Catherine Gotanehara, MP, Speaker of Parliament of Malawi. Honorable Titus Valo, Minister of Justice, and all the Cabinet and Deputy Cabinet Ministers here present. My Lord Lovemore Chikopa, SC, Judge of the Supreme Court, and all the honorable judges here present. Ms. Colleen Zamba, Secretary of the President and Cabinet, and all the government officials here present. Ms. Martha Jizuma, Director General, and all the members of staff of the Anti-Corruption Bureau. All the leaders and representatives and members of the Tonse Alliance here present. Honorable Kondwani Nkrumah, MP, Leader of the Opposition in Parliament of Malawi, Your Excellencies, heads of mission and international organizations here present, Professor Patrick Otieno Lumumba, Mr. Herman Lobser, and all the presenters here present. Mr. Timothy Milton Hansted and Ms. Annalie Bess Eriksson from the Chandler Foundation. All the members of Parliament here present, Your Worship, Councillor Wild Ndipo, Mayor of the City of Blantyre, and all the councillors here present. All the paramount chiefs and all the traditional leaders here present. The Reverend Dr. Zach Kawalala, officiating clergy, and all the religious leaders here present. Distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the last time I was in this room was 6 weeks and 6 days before the historic fresh presidential election of June 2020. I remember the occasion like it was yesterday. A chilly morning with a cold breeze of Blantyre cleansing the air. And I often think about the unlikely and miraculous path that led to it. Exactly a year before, Dr. Chidima and I had petitioned the High Court to conduct a rigorous exposition of the overwhelming evidence of electoral fraud and corruption we had brought against the Malawi Electoral Commission's administration of the 2019 presidential elections. After an 8-month inquest, during which hundreds of thousands of Malawians across the country had taken the streets supporting our petitions, 5 righteous judges of the Constitutional Court unanimously ruled that the 2019 presidential election had indeed been so corrupted as to render it unconstitutional. And so 3 months and 3 days later, on the first Wednesday of May, I walked into this very room to present to Dr. Jane Ansah my nomination papers as presidential candidate of the Malawi Congress Party, with Dr. Chidima at my side as the running mate on account of the national coalition we had forged under the banner of Tonse Alliance. In my address at that occasion, I spoke about Malawi's date with destiny, that despite the odds stacked against us, we as a nation were destined to fight against and defeat the plunder that had been perpetrated against our country and impoverished our people for well over 26 years. To the dozens of the Malawians who had gathered in this room that day, and hundreds of thousands who had filled every street from here to Ndilande, from Ndilande to Chichiri, from Chichiri to Limbe, from Limbe to Kanjedza, from Kanjedza to Naperi, and from Naperi to Mount Pleasant, and to millions more who were watching around the country, I declared on that occasion that it was our destiny and calling from God to change the status quo of state corruption and fraud and that no force on earth could stop our pursuit of that change. Today, I have called us all back here to renew our commitment to that pursuit of a new Malawi, a new Malawi in which Malawians at all levels of society play their unique role in the fight against corruption. Just as it was between 2019 and 2020, when we realized that electoral fraud was so entrenched that it would require relentless and concerted effort from everyone to defeat it, we must once again accept that state corruption is so entrenched that it demands the designing and deployment of a new approach, one that involves a relentless and concerted effort from all stakeholders to fight and campaign against all forms of state corruption. And from this conference, we need a new anti-corruption message that fuels a new anti-corruption campaign involving everyone: faith community leaders, traditional leaders, political party leaders, media houses, non-government organizations, civil society organizations, development partners, independent state institutions, cabinet ministers, online publications, private sector players, district councils, parents in their homes, social media influencers, and even the diaspora. We have designated the 20 weeks between now and the National Anti-Corruption Day in December as a time to campaign against corruption across Malawi, a time to reset the moral tone of our nation through a special and intensified anti-corruption campaign across the country. And so from this conference, each stakeholder group must declare how they will participate in that campaign, using the platforms, resources, and opportunities that are uniquely at their disposal. Secondly, from this conference, we need a new anti-corruption approach that demands all relevant institutions, duty bearers, and office bearers to not only produce the desired results that are funded to produce, but a new approach that also demands that they work together to safeguard the sustainability of the fight. For example, we need a new approach that demands that Parliament plays its role by addressing the inconsistencies and gaps in our entire law, not simply cherry pick one clause about prosecution or consent found in one law as if doing so will address the mistrust that hinder public institutions from working together to close all the gaps criminals use to defraud the government. Parliament must look at the country's laws comprehensively. Laws that regulate political party financing, laws that regulate public procurement, laws that regulate financial transactions between private and public sector, laws that regulate interagency cooperation, laws that regulate the proper conduct of criminal investigations, even laws that regulate the running of governance bodies like the Anti-Corruption Bureau, the Directorate of Public Prosecution, the Physical Police, and the Financial Intelligence Authority, not only to protect their independence from state actors, but also from undue influence from non-state actors like political parties, private businesses, and agents of foreign governments. Not too long ago, a diplomat from a Western country told me that I should expect to see arrests of corruption suspects from the previous administration. And I told him that I do not know anything about it because I do not interfere with the operations of authorities responsible for those matters. But I was shocked that a foreign diplomat had access to that kind of information and influence over our law enforcement. So if Parliament is serious about independence of our institutions, then it must go all the way in ensuring that no entity, whether domestic or foreign, is able to influence how and when laws are enforced in this country. But even with Parliament playing its role, we need this conference to define a role for each and every stakeholder in the anti-corruption fight, so that before we leave here, each stakeholder can publicly commit to that role. That should include the role of cabinet members and people in my office, which the Secretary to the President and Cabinet will publicly commit to before this conference concludes. In that context, I'm also happy to announce that I have directed the SPC to initiate the process of reactivating Malawi's membership in the Open Government Partnership, which aims at raising the level of accountability across the government in general and using international tools and standards in ensuring that we have a system that prevents corruption from taking place in the first place, not just a system that punishes and prosecutes it when the damage is already done. Malawi's membership in the Open Government Partnership became inactive under the previous administration, and we will soon have a roadmap to see it reactivated by the end of this year. This is in recognition of the fact that we need the support of the international community in our quest for good governance, because so much of the plunder under our nation involves international transactions and the externalization of our resources. We have had our taxes externalized to the United Kingdom through procurement fraud. We have had our gold externalized to the United Arab Emirates and China through export fraud. We have had our precious rubies externalized to the United States through mining fraud. This kind of plunder of our country is no longer going to be tolerated from anybody, from any country. And where we find evidence of our resources being externalized to another country, we are going to demand that those resources be returned to us. These are not the 1700s or 1800s where the scramble for Africa was an acceptable crime. We won't accept corruption and illicit theft of our resources in any form, because our stance against corruption applies across the board. Let me therefore express my appreciation to our international partners who have made this conference possible, especially the Chandler Foundation, whose Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Tim Hansted, and I agreed to work together in matters of public sector reform and anti-corruption. The Foundation's co-sponsorship of this conference is a precious gift to Malawi, and I want to say that I do not take that for granted. I'm also grateful for the participation of all of you in this conference, as well as our special guests, like our panelists and Professor Lumumba, whose insights about the moral dimensions of the fight against corruption will surely be useful in the deliberations that have been planned for today and tomorrow. Last but not least, I must thank the Anti-Corruption Bureau and the Minister of Justice for working together with my office to see that this conference I announced merely 8 weeks ago becomes a reality so quickly. In putting this conference together, you have given Malawi a golden opportunity to raise the level of public engagement in a matter of national interest. And I appeal to all of us here to put this opportunity to good and maximum use. Amayi ndi abambo, nkhani yatibweretsa pano ndi nkhani yakuti tizikambirana ngakhale sikhala yosangalatsa nthawi zonse. Ndi nkhani imene aliyense wa ife ayenera kudziunika nkunena kuti kodi gawo langa likhala la mtundu wanji. Pokumbukira mmene ndabwerera muno tikukambirana zakuti kukhala masankho wena mmene ndinkapereka mapepala zidali zitachitika chifukwa cha nkhani zimene zinali ku khoti, majaji nkugamula kuti kukhalenso masankho wena. Koma ngakhale nthawi imeneyo tinkalankhula kuti nthawi yakwana yakuti zinthu zisinthike ndi kuti tionetsetse kuti chauta watibweretsa nthawi ngati imeneyi ndi cholinga chakuti zinthu zisinthike kwathu kuno. Ine chikhulupiriro chinalipo ndipo chilipobe kuti palibe chimene chitiletse kubweretsa kusintha kumeneko. Chifukwa lero tabweranso mchipinda chino pofuna kuti kodi tikamati Malawi watsopanoyo tikhale naye Malawi wa mtundu wanji pa levulo iliyonse, makamaka pokhudzana ndi nkhani yolimbana ndi katangale kapena ziphuphu. Zinthuzi zimafotokozedwa bwino madera osiyanasiyana, ngakhale lero kummawa tamva bwinobwino. Monga mmene zidalili pakati pa zaka zija 2019-2020 zitadziwikadi kuti masankho adayenda bwino, nkunena kuti ngakhale izi zidatsimikizika ndi kulowerera m'madera ankhaninkhani amene timachitira zinthu zathu, wafunika kuti tisaleke kukambirana ndi kupeza njira zatsopano zakuti tikhoza kuthetsera mchitidwe woyipawo. Nchifukwa aliyense wokhudzika ndi nkhani ngati zimenezi anenapo pano kuti tisangokhala ngati ena ndife oonelera mpira, wosewera ni wochepa, koma tonse tikhale mgrawundi kusewera nawo mpira umenewo. Chifukwa kuchokera pa msonkhano uno ndi nchikhulupiriro kuti tikhala ndi nyonga zina kuti nkhondo imeneyi aliyense agwemo. Atsogoleri wathu wakumidzi ndi m'matawuni, atsogoleri wathu wazipembedzo kulikonse, atsogoleri wathu wandale zipani zosiyanasiyana, nyumba zofalitsa ndi kulutsa mauthenga osiyanasiyana, mabungwe amene sali aboma, mabungwe amene amayang'anira maufulu osiyanasiyana wa anthu a Malawi, nduna zimene kapenanso zolemba zimene zimakhalapo pa masamba a intaneti, angakhale amene amachita mabizinesi osiyanasiyana, komanso nanga kuma district council, nanga bwanji kunyumba makolo ni wana, nanga iwo amene akanena zinthu zimamveka mwamsanga ndipo amazitsatira nkhaninkhani tikakamba za masamba amchezo, nanga ngakhale iwo amene ali kunja kwa dziko lino koma na Malawi okonda dziko lawo. Tufuna kuti masabata 20 amene alipo kuyambira pano mpaka na Disembala, pamene dziko lonse lapansi kwathu komwe kuno timakhala ni tsiku lokambirana zakuthetsa katangale. Masabata amenewa tikhale zochita zimene magulu onse ninatchulawa ngati nayiwalapo wena tizionanso nzokambirana zathu, chifukwa ngakhale pa msonkhano wathu wopaliza uja tidayika magulu 12 aja, koma ngati pali wena wofunikira tonse tichite izi mogwirizana, kulankhula kuti aliyense amvetsetse kuyipa kwake kwa katangale ndi kukoma kwake kwa kuthetsa katangale, kuti dziko lathu likhoza kukwaniritsa masomphenya okhala ndi dziko lodzidalira lotukuka, chifukwa chakuti chuma chambiri chimene chikuonongeka chikhoza kuperekedwa pakuyambitsa zinthu zimene zipangitse Malawi kukhala dziko lochita zinthu maloka. Ndipo tifuna mwayi umene muli nawo m'madera wanu, m'magulu wanu, mugwiritse ntchito mwayi umeneyo kuti izizi zitheke. Chachiwiri, tifuna kuti msonkhano uno ukatha tikhalenso ni machidwe atsopano woyembekezera ndi kufuna kuti kaya nkuboma amene ali adindo, amene tili ndi maofesi osiyanasiyana kapena mipando yosiyanasiyana, tikhale ni zotsatira zolozeka zimene zikuthandizira kuti nkhondo tili kupambana. Kuonetsanso kuti tikugwira limodzi ntchitoyi, tiulumikizana bwino kuti ntchitoyo isayimire pa njira. Mwachitsanzo, mpofunika tionetsetse kuti pakhale mgwirizano wabwino tikamapempha aku Nyumba ya Malamulo amene amakoza malamulo, kuti mwina ndi mwina amene timaona ngati muli ming'alu mabowo chifukwa cha malamulo wosalumikizana bwino, ndipo wena nkupezerapo mpata wakuti azilowa m'mabowomo kuti zinthu zisakhazikike bwino. Malamulo amenewo tiwakonze, malamulo amenewo azikhala wolumikizana bwino, osati kuti tingosinthako aka chifukwa choti pa nthawi ino nkamene katikhalira bwino wosaunika zonse mmene ziyenera kukhalira, chifukwa zimenezo zikhoza kuoneka ngati yankho la tsiku limodzi, pamene msonkhano uno ngakhale kum'mawako afotokoza ambirimbiri kuti ngakhale malamulo alipo kale ambiriwo, koma pena ndi pena ndi mtima wa munthu ndithu, na aliyense amene amachita ndi malamulo kuti akuchita nawo motani. Kusakhulupirirana chifukwa chogwira ntchito ndi madera osiyanasiyana amalamulo mdziko sikwabwino, koma kuti titseke mabowo kulikonseko ming'aluyo isakhaleponso, ntchitoyi tigwire mogwirizana. Aku Nyumba ya Malamulo uonikani zimenezi bwinobwino, ngakhale zija zatchulidwa za malamulo okhudzana ndi zipani, malamulo okhudzana ndi kapezedwe ka katundu kapena kugulitsa kapena kumwaza katunduyo, malamulo okhudzana ndi mmene amene ali private sector kapena mabusiness ndi boma amalumikizana chotani, malamulo ofuna kuti kodi tikamafufuza nkhani ngati zimenezi, malamulo amenewa kapena kuti kafufuzidwe kamene kakaziyenda motani, malamulo okhudzana ndi woyendetsa ofesi yaku Directorate of Public Prosecution, kapenanso ku police, physical police amene amafufuza zokhuzana ndi ndalama, kapenanso Financial Intelligence Authority, FIA. Osanguti malamulowo ateteze mabungwewa kuyima pawo okha ndi kugwira ntchito mopanda wina wowalowerera, koma kuti nawonso agwire ntchito mogwirizana kuti wonse akupulumutsa dziko la Malawi. Tisalole kuti pazikhala mpanipani kumabungwe ngati amenewa wochokera kwa anthu azipani, wochokera kwa anthu amabizinesi, wochokera kwa anthu angakhale akunja kwa dziko la Malawi. Pakati apo sikale anandipeza wena akumaiko azungu kumandiuza kuti posidwa apa muyambanso kuona kuti anthu aboma lakale lija ayamba kumangidwa. Tinane kuti izi zikudodometsa, ndimvere kwa inuyo, inetu sindidziwa zinthuzi chifukwa sindifuna kumalowerera kuti kodi next pakhale chiyani. Nkhani za mtundu umenewo satero zidandidzimutsa kwambiri, chifukwa ngati apo nyumba ya malamulo tili ndi mtima wakuti bungwe lilonse ligwire ntchito momasuka, aliyense asalowererepo. Aliyense tiye tiwalole anthu athu kulingana ndi malamulo amene amagwiritsa ntchito agwire ntchito momasuka, osati mopanikizidwa kuti mutere. Zimenezo zipangitsa kuti anthu athu sazikhala opanikizidwa kuchokera kwina kulikonseko. Tikafuna kuti president asalowerere, ndiye kuti winanso kwina asalowerere, agwire ntchito kulingana ndi malamulo awo. Chifukwa malamulo amenewa ndi wakuno ku Malawi. Koma ngakhale parliament itagwira ntchito yawo, sizithandiza ngati tikachoka pa msonkhano ngati uno tikhoza kunena kuti nzawo mezo kapena nzawo zimenezo. Ayi, zionetsetse kuti angakhale anthu amofesi mwanga, nduna, komanso aliyense apereke panopa poyera chitsimikizo chakuti ifeyo mbali yathuyi tizichitaso zakuti, tizichita zakuti. Zimenezo zitithandizira kuti aliyense akhala ndi gawo. Tere kuti kakamba za mofesi mwangamu kwenkweneko ndi mawu za dzuloli kuti nufuna kuti ino SPC mlembi wamkulu wonetsetsani kuti sanathe December kapena sanafike December lakuti tamaliza chaka chino, umembala wa dziko lino pa mabungwe amaiko onse a dziko lapansi wonetsetsa kuti zinthu zonse zimachitika poyera ndi pambalambanda, open government partnership. Umembala umene unakhala ngati sudatsimikizikenso kuti upitirire, tiyambirenso tionetsetse kuti ndife wochita nawo. Chifukwa zimenezo zitithandizira kuti sindife tokha patokha, koma mogwirizana ndi maiko ena wonse tumachita zinthu mogwirizana kuti zizikhala zonse pa mbalambanda. Zimenezo zitithandizira yakuti Katangale wachitikayo tithane naye motani, koma kuti Katangale amene angachitike timpewe motani. Zikatere ndiye kuti tiuchita mbali zonse. Chifukwa chake Malawi tipitirire kukhala membala wa bungwe limenelo. Komanso timafuna tivomereze kuti tiluterayo tiunena kuti Malawi sikachilumba kapakokha ndi limodzi la mayiko mu SADC muno mu Africa muno ngakhalenso pa dziko lonse lapansi mmene timagwirizirana ndi ena chifukwa chuma china chimene chaonongeka kwathu kuno nchakuti kupyolera mwakatangale ndi kuba kwa chuma cha dziko ndalama zapita mayiko ena koma osathandiza Malawi. Ndalama za nkhaninkhani zapita ku Mangalande chifukwa cha anthu ofuna kuti ndalamazo zikakhale kumeneko. Golide amene ndalama za nkhaninkhani zapita ku UAE ku China chifukwa chakuti anthu amene akuchita za migodi yotereyo amachita zinthu mozemba. Ndalama za nkhaninkhani zidapita ku America kupyolera miyala ya mtengo wapatali ma rubies kunchewu kuja ndi madera ena. Ndalama za nkhaninkhani chifukwa cha anthu ochita zinthu mozemba zosathandiza dziko la Malawi. Tufuna kulikonse kumene kudapita chuma cha Malawi ndi umboni wokhazikika ndi wolondoledwa chuma chimenecho chibwerere ku Malawi chidzakweze dziko lino. Sizija zakale zakuti azungu akhoza kugwirizana kwawo nkune kuti Africa tigawane motere nthawi imeneyi nkukhala ngati zovomerezeka. Lero zimenezo nzosavomerezekanso zakuti chuma cha Africa chizingolandidwa motere. Ndiye ndipereke zikomo kwambiri kwa akuluakulu a Chanda Foundation, Bambo Tim Henstead. Tidakumana ku Davos yeziyo ndipo tidakambirana adavomereza kuti akhoza kuthandiza nchifukwa chake msonkhano uno ukutheka. Nchifukwa chake sondalimba mtima kulankhula kuti tichite msonkhano uno. Ndiyamike chifukwa cha kudzipereka kwawo. Komanso ndiyamike ena amene mwabwera kudzathandiza kuti mukhoza kuphunzitsa. Professor Lumumba ndi munthu amene adziwika bwino ndipo ngakhale kulankhula kwawo kwatilimbikitsa kuti tisagwe mphwayi tichite zimene tingathe ngakhale ntchitoyo ndi yayikulu. Uru ni mwayi waperekedwa kwa ife pomanga pa zina zabwino zija zaperekedwa kale malipoti wake tichite bwino koposa motani. Koma aliyense asanene kuti nzanu aliyense anene kuti nzathu chifukwa zimenezi zikukhudza aliyense wa ife. With these remarks, I declare this two-day National Anti-Corruption Conference officially opened. Thank you.
Zikomo kwambiri azimayi, zikomo kwambiri. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your official opening address. That item, Your Excellency, marks the end of the morning session with regards to this conference. But just a reminder that this afternoon we are continuing with the conference. And so before you take leave, Your Excellency, allow me to ask Your Excellencies, all protocols observed, and delegates to please rise as the police band gives us the national anthem. Mwina mongo kupemphani kuti olemekezeka president komanso a first lady asananyamuke malo ano tonse tiyime ndi cholinga chakuti timve nyimbo komanso kuimba nyimbo ya fuko lathu.